It's time for Twit. Great panel for you. We've got Glenn Fleischman back. He is so much fun. Denise Howell from This Week in Law, and a newbie, but I think she's going to be great, Caitlin McGarry. She's the news editor at Protocol, and she's going to talk about the drop in Bitcoin value. She just did a whole show on that one. Elon Musk, is he abandoning his Twitter deal? And what did Google announce at Google I.O.? Anything? It's all coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 875, recorded Sunday, May 15th, 2022. We don't talk about Elon. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by 8 Sleep. Go to 8sleep.com/twit for exclusive Memorial Day savings through June 6th. Cool down this summer with 8 Sleep, now shipping within the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. And if you're listening after June 6th, use the same URL to check out the Pod Pro cover and save $150 at checkout. And by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed free for life, go to wealthfront.com/twit. And by Blue Land. Stop wasting water and throwing out more plastic. Get Blue Land's revolutionary refill cleaning system instead. Right now, you can get 20% off your first order when you go to blueland.com/twit. And by ZipRecruiter. Some people make life easier by helping you out. ZipRecruiter makes hiring easier because they do the work for you. How? ZipRecruiter's technology finds great candidates and you can invite them to apply. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/twit to try it for free. It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show where we talk about the latest tech news, which means it's Elon Musk all the time. No, it's not. It's not. It's not. Let's introduce our panel before we get too far down that road. Glenn Fleischman is back. We had such fun with you, Glenn, on This Week in Google. I said, I got to get you on Twig. He is a longtime tech journalist. Glenn.fun is his new website. We talked a lot about type and typography, and you taught me the word flong.
I brought some just in case we have a moment to talk about it.
Glenn goes... Oh, that's a John Glenn. Nice.
That's a John Glenn. It's a teaser if you have time later.
Oh, good. Oh, we'll talk about it. That's great. It's great to have you back. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you.
Also from This Week in Law, the Internet's lawyer, Denise Howell. Always a pleasure. Good to see you, Denise.
It's great to see you
Looks
all.
like you have some new comfy furniture in there.
Oh, no, same old comfy furniture that's always been in my office.
Oh, okay. This just looks even more comfy.
Yeah, it's nice when we have to do family Zooms with people.
Oh,
the family
that's
come
it.
And sit behind
this
me.
is your this is your Zoom studio. I get it now. I get it now. And somebody new on Twit. We're really excited to get the news editor from Protocol, Caitlin McGarry, on. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You have a beautiful fireplace. Look at that. That is spiffy.
I do.
Can you put wood and burn things in there?
No, that would be bad.
No.
It is not functional.
Fireplaces are like an 18th century affectation now, right? I got a fireplace. I just can't use it.
It's beautiful, though.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. You got a mantle. Mantles are good for putting all your awards on. It's always a handy thing. Anyway, welcome all three. I guess, okay, let's get it out of the way. How about that? But I kind of have to report this. On Friday, Elon Musk at 5:44 a.m. Well, you didn't want me to do this, Glenn?
Oh, no, I think it's important. It's just that it's funny. I don't want to interrupt you. It's just every single piece of media is so focused on him. He's gotten exactly what he wanted.
I know. I don't want to.
Sneezes.
I know. I don't want to give him anything.
It's important. It's important. It is important.
So we're going to do this quick. 5:44 a.m. He says, forget it. I don't want to buy Twitter after all. And of course, Twitter stock goes down to $40. He's offering $54.20, so that tells you the stock market thinks it's over, his bid. He then says, no, it's not over. He then violates his NDA with Twitter, at least according to him, because he tweeted that their bot review process only uses 100 tests or whatever. I didn't even understand what he was talking about, but apparently the lawyers then called him and said, you're not allowed to talk about it. He tweeted, Twitter Legal just called to complain I violated their NDA by revealing the bot check sample size is 100. This actually happened. I am so sick of this story. He is a troll. Is that what is your position, Glenn? He just wants attention.
I think he wants control. I think he's an abusive boyfriend who is taking over the internet. Is kind of what he feels like, right?
Yeah,
it's like he's mercurial. If he doesn't get what he wants, he starts screaming and shouting. He will violate any law. It's not restraining orders in this case, but it's he's being abusive to Twitter key employees. He may be responsible for Twitter choosing, indirectly because of how the deal is structured, indirectly forcing out 2 longtime employees in advance of the deal, closing maybe in a few months. And it's pretty clear he's actually violated. All right, so I'm not a lawyer, and there is one on this program, so I will not comment in a legal sense. But at a cursory reading, it seems like that he's violated the deal. So Twitter could get out if it wanted to, but why would it want to get out when it's trading that much below the price that he?
Yeah,
right.
Please, both of them have billion-dollar exit fees, but I don't think that if you get out for cause, you're not going to have to pay the $1 billion. Right. 2 very important employees were fired by Twitter's current CEO, Parag Agrawal. Kayvon Bakpour, who is general manager, he came to Twitter from Periscope, was, as far as I know, well liked at Twitter. He was on paternity leave, tweeted, I guess I'm out. Parag says we want to take another direction. Bruce Falk, the general manager for revenue, also fired. You have to wonder, is this Agrawal trying to keep his job with Elon coming in, or Agrawal
his
said
better deal though is he gets a bunch of money if he has to leave. So Agrawal, if I were him, I don't know. I mean, this is being very pecuniary or something, but if he's forced out or immediately fired by Musk, he gets a huge pile
almost
of money.
$500 million. Yeah.
So why stay, right?
It's all very weird. It's all very weird.
It's all very weird. And I think you hit on, does Twitter really want out of this deal, even if it could get out because of a violation of their NDA, which none of us know what the terms of that are, although this seems like something that would pretty clearly violate an NDA.
Is it violating the NDA to say that I just got called by the lawyers to say I violated the NDA? That seems like a double violation. Maybe they cancel each other.
Statistical Twitter was saying, and I didn't follow this, to be honest, because I'm not part of Statistical Twitter, that said that he absolutely misunderstood what Twitter is doing. And so he was saying it was 100 and it was nothing like that at all. So he tweeted that, and there was just Statistical Twitter was just like, oh, this shows, and it gave them an opportunity to try to explain what the basis is and which sampling is done. So it's not even what
and that actually might make the lawyers even more upset because, Denise, if the information becomes public, then you're not violating an NDA to talk about it? That's sort of?
No, I don't know that would necessarily follow.
Okay.
And the other thing he might be violating is securities laws. Because
we know that.
If any of this is manipulating the stock price so that Twitter's stock goes down.
Right.
Then.
Caitlin, you said he doesn't care about SEC rules?
I mean, obviously not. I think the SEC is just a plaything for him at this point. It's like he's playing some weird game with them. And I think I don't know. I mean, I think his tweets on Friday were just him having fun. Like, what does it mean to put a deal on hold? You either do the deal or you don't do the deal. Like, what
he's actually not in a position to put it on hold, I don't think. He's agreed.
So they could force him to give up that money. They could take him to court and
said,
make
no,
him
you
complete
agreed.
the deal, right?
Yeah.
So, which would be hilarious. You got to admit that would be funny.
And then he'd
have to admit he didn't have the money.
How to turn off the algorithm. And then he says something which shows his ignorance of open source. He says, I'm going to post the algorithm on GitHub. Like somehow that's magical. Like there is even like a section of code you could just post on GitHub that would be the algorithm. Doesn't even.
For anybody who doesn't know what you're talking about, Leo, you need to explain.
So Elon has shown in the past his ignorance about what open source means. When Tesla came out, he said, I'm going to open source how to make these cars, which wasn't what he meant. He meant I'll license it. You could pay me for it. So there's a significant difference between open sourcing and you could pay me and I'll tell you how we do it.
Sure.
So he clearly
But
doesn't
also,
understand open source. But he's saying...
For anyone who doesn't follow Elon on Twitter.
Right. He's saying...
What is he talking about when he's talking about the algorithm and posting it?
So when he acquired Twitter, he said there's a few things we're going to do. It's very simple. It's really easy. Why haven't they figured this out in 15 years? I don't know, says Elon. But we're only everything free speech. Only if it's illegal will we ban it. And we're going to get rid of spam. Okay, right there, that's contradictory because spam is not illegal. Okay. And then we're going to open source the algorithm, which I think is nonsense on the face of it because I don't think it's one like, okay, here's the 15 lines of code. What algorithm is he talking about? Is he talking about I think he's talking about an algorithm which on Twitter isn't even like the Facebook algorithm. It's just that if you want, you can go to your top tweets first, or you can go to your latest tweets. And it's an easy setting. He even describes it. That's how I do it, chronological. Is that the algorithm? I guess that's the algorithm. And is it something that's 20 lines of code? Maybe. Maybe it's not that simple. I suspect it's not. I don't think it's simple enough you could post it on GitHub. And finally, there's the problem. GitHub, of course, a place where you could publish open source code. Then there's a problem that the people who chiefly would benefit from this are people who'd like to game the system to get their tweets show up higher. And who's that? Oh, spammers. So the whole thing, we've had this conversation a million times. I got dragged into it. He's just a troll. I guess the last question, then we'll go on to more important matters. Is he going to get Twitter? What do you think, Caitlin?
This is tough.
There's no right answer, by the way.
I know. Well,
it's not a quiz show.
I'm not sure because there are so many twists and turns. Like one week I'm like, oh, this deal is definitely going through. He's going to buy Twitter. And then the next week he says something and I'm like, I don't think he actually wants to buy Twitter. He's like, now the funding is coming from a million sources. It's not going to belong solely to him. Like it's not as fun as it seemed originally when he set out to buy it. It's getting really complicated. And now I think maybe he's looking for an exit strategy. So I don't know. Every week my mind just changes.
Caitlin, isn't he being crushed by the margin, or not the margin calls, but he's leveraged Tesla. I mean, I don't follow Tesla very closely at all, honestly. But it seems like my reading of the financial side of that is he is leveraged so much of his holdings in Tesla and options and so forth that with the drop in Tesla's price since the deal was announced and the general market downtrend, he could be heavily compressed there. I wondered when he made this call, does this wind up with him losing control of Tesla and losing the Twitter bit at the same time and winding up less wealthy and no longer in that catbird seat? And I don't know. Maybe he could just walk away and pay $1 billion. At
the beginning of April, Tesla stock was $1,145. It is currently $769, and that's because it had a dead cat bounce. It was down to $728, half that amount, almost half that amount. So, and yes, he borrowed on margin. He's the richest man in the world based on Tesla stock value. So he's already lost billions and billions of dollars in stock value, and he borrowed against the Tesla stock. There could be a margin call if the stock price goes down enough. That's probably what's one of the things propelling the stock price down. So this is for those, and every time we talk about Elon, I get emails saying, he's a genius. How could you, why don't you have somebody on that says he's a genius? So, anybody?
He's playing 5D chess or something.
5D chess. He's brilliant.
He's playing us all because we keep talking about him. I tweeted something about him, and then I thought, oh, he got me. I tweeted about him again. I've been muted. What the heck?
Do you think he's going to get it, Glenn?
No. I mean, I'm saying that definitively as if I know anything, but I think that I don't think the market's going to respond. I mean, again, I'm saying this, I try not to be a pundit, but based on what's happening in the market and worldwide, everything that's going on, right? We have this whole situation. A lot of, I think, fairly smart economists are saying the market's not going to rebound quickly because of all these fundamental factors. Tesla's down. Musk is already finding this a slog. He's already done things that have violated public provisions that were in the deal that was filed, that you could read and say, oh, he's did this and this and this, as beyond any NDAs. And does he really want to spend another 5 months going through this? I suspect he is going to, this whatever percent he already bought of Twitter is down, so he's taking a loss on that too. So I wonder if he just washes his hand of it, walks away, pays $1 billion, and decides it was a fun thing to yank everyone's chain for several months.
You agree, Denise?
I don't know. I was just working through, again, that he owns a lot of Twitter stock at this point. And so if he's out...
9.25%, I think, at last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't buy it, is he just cutting his losses, selling that stock? He's tanked the stock. I don't know.
Yeah, he's probably underwater.
It's like we're living in a simulation.
which he fully believes, by the way. I'm convinced of it.
He's controlling the dials. That's the problem.
I think the deal's gone south. I don't know I think he wanted Twitter. I think he underestimated the complexity of what he was embarking on. And I think his shareholders, his boards on the other companies, and general sentiment in the public are going to convince him this was a bad idea, and he's going to pay $1 billion and walk away. We'll find out. I didn't think he was going to buy it, by the way. I said this is all a joke. He's not going to buy it. So I consider my track record. Meanwhile, state of Texas is not waiting till Elon gets Twitter to regulate with the new Texas social media content moderation law. We had Mike Masnick on Twig on Friday. He sent me an email, or maybe he tweeted this after the show, saying, I had just read about the decision. There was an injunction that kept the law from being enforced that the 5th District overturned and said, oh, no, go ahead. And it had just happened, and Mike Masnick came on Twig. We were talking about it. He said, I was not clear how awful, how messed up this law really is. He says, I don't think most people actually understand just how truly effed up and obviously unconstitutional the law is. I'm going to let our official internet lawyer weigh in on this, although Mike, I think, is also a law school graduate. I don't know if he ever practiced. The law declares social media platforms common carriers, which they're clearly not. Why is common carriers important, Denise? What does that even mean?
It's something like the telephone company would be a common carrier. And they're regulated differently by the FCC.
Well, didn't the FCC say that internet service providers are not common carriers? So net neutrality didn't apply?
They've gone back and forth under different administrations.
Depending on what they wanted to do, yeah.
Yes. Our current status is they are not common carriers as far as the FCC is concerned.
The reason that's important is you don't tell the phone company. This is what the Fifth Circuit was saying. Well, the phone company is not allowed to listen in on your conversations and say, we're going to ban you because you're giving bad COVID information. And since you're a common carrier, Twitter, you shouldn't be able to either.
Right. And
that's just nuts.
That is nuts, but that's not what anybody has to decide at this point. What was in place was an injunction preventing this law from going into effect until a court actually had the opportunity to have briefing and argument and decide those questions. And it's the court that's going to make those decisions, the district court that's hearing this case in Texas, that issued that injunction. The Attorney General in Texas appealed that injunction to the Fifth Circuit, which is a very conservative circuit, appellate circuit of our federal appellate system. And that court undid the injunction. So the plaintiffs in the case who are challenging the law are actually now going to ask the Supreme Court to weigh in and say, hey, this injunction was in place and it should remain in place. This law shouldn't go into effect because there is irreparable harm that will happen to, I suppose they'll say, a whole segment of the commercial landscape if this law does go into effect. So we'll have to see if the Supreme Court decides to weigh in and reinstate the injunction. That is a thing that could happen. It is an unusual thing for the Supreme Court to do, to second guess the decisions of courts below it on the question of whether there's been irreparable harm or there's the threat of irreparable harm. So we'll just have to see. That could happen. But in the meantime, the appellate court that oversees this trial court has decided, hey, let's just go ahead and let this thing
Let's see what happens.
be the law.
Yeah, let's just see what happens.
Yes. While it is being challenged on constitutional grounds. And what might wind up happening is all of the arguments for how unwieldy the law is and all of its negative impact may wind up playing out while the case is actually pending, so that the plaintiffs can actually make some concrete arguments. Hey, we were going to say that this was likely to happen. Now you can see that it's happening. So it might actually wind up helping the plaintiff's case to get the law declared unconstitutional.
So there's and Mike Masnick refers to this, a good thread on Twitter, of course, by Pope Hat, who, despite his name, is actually a litigator named Ken White, not the Pope. And he says this is why this is an issue. The anti-censorship provision of the Texas law says that any site with more than 50 million monthly active users can't censor based on the viewpoint of a person or the person's content. So you cannot censor somebody on their viewpoint or how they express it. What you can censor, well, you can censor content that's illegal. Okay, that's a fairly narrow range, although this sounds a little bit like what Elon Musk was proposing. And the site can censor other things, but it doesn't say exactly what those are, which means pretty much, according to Ken, that every single moderation decision will be up for a lawsuit. That it just opens it up.
Yes. So you can imagine that if all that starts to play out while this case is pending and the lawyers are drafting arguments about its constitutionality and appropriateness and validity, that they may wind up with a lot more evidence on their hands for the court to consider. And remember, this court actually granted an injunction that prevented this law from taking effect.
But then it raises a question, well, even if this court rules in favor of overturning the law, the Fifth Circuit could then take it on appeal and overturn it down the road, since they've already indicated they're kind of in favor of it.
They've already indicated, and they didn't publish an opinion, but there is a transcript of the argument that undid this injunction. And they've indicated they really don't understand much about the internet, how the internet works, what Twitter is, what's a common carrier, what's an internet service provider, what is a website. So, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Fifth Circuit even really understanding these issues well enough to reach a good decision here.
Denise, I'm not even a simple country lawyer, and reading this, I've got no law background. I've tried to stay up on the issues, and I read this, and it just feels blatantly unconstitutional
because of the First Amendment.
7 ways from Friday, right? Like so many different ways. Like seems so prima facie. I look at it, I'm like, I have no specialized expertise, but just the basic phrases in the law that are used, the kind of imposition it puts on private companies, the way in which it imposes a government mandate. I mean, it feels like they're trying to take aspects of the sue to prevent abortion law and apply it to content.
This
too.
is
like
the Texas
shoehorned
This
in there
is
as
the
well.
new Texas way of doing business, isn't it? The Texas law lets any aggrieved user sue if they think the site censored improperly. This is according to Ken White, and get attorney fees and costs if they win. Yeah. If the Texas law stands, he says, there's no more saying it's Twitter's First Amendment right to moderate. This is where it's confusing, because on the one hand, people say, well, it's my First Amendment right to say anything I want on Twitter. That is not the case. The First Amendment says government shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Congress.
And Twitter's not the government.
Twitter's not the government. So in effect, it would be saying You have a First Amendment right with Twitter that they can't moderate. But no social site, no site, our chat room, our forums would survive. They would all turn into 4chan or 8kun if you couldn't moderate.
Yeah.
You need to be able to moderate, if only to say you can't use the F word. I mean, you need to be able to do that. And you don't even need Section 230 to allow us to do that. We're private businesses running our own private social networks. Maybe the point is that Twitter has now this is Elon's point, some higher standing as the public, marketplace of ideas or something.
You'd need something more than the state of Texas proclaiming that.
Right.
You'd need something at the federal level. You'd need congressional legislation. And by the way, I guess this is just a good time to encourage everyone. We have primaries coming up, and there are congressional seats at stake. Please look at your potential representatives and try and research what they know about the internet, what they know about privacy laws, because it's important that they understand these
I agree 100%. And of course, Roe v. Wade is also up, and there's so many issues that we really, but I have to say, I also understand how hard it is for voters. We're in California, Denise, we got a 4-page ballot with for controller and judges and sheriffs, a lot of people we've never heard of. The amount of research, I don't know, how many candidates for governor are there in California? It looks like a dozen. There's your ballot.
My ballot.
And,
yes, which
and
I just started filling out.
Unless you're going to go by the yard signs, or maybe, you're really sophisticated and you're going to wait till you get a card from the Democratic or Republican Party telling you how to vote, you've got a lot of research ahead.
You do. So prioritize the research about your potential congressional representatives, I guess is what I'm saying, because...
Yeah, but then we got governor, lieutenant governor, comptroller, secretary of state. Yeah. We got assembly. We've got legislature. It just goes on and on and on. And I could see how voters are just overwhelmed.
Leo, you hate democracy? I'm confused here about the
I love
representative democracy. It takes so much effort. I realize my wife is an excellent researcher. I have to admit, I'm far worse. She reads the voter pamphlet. She looks stuff up. She makes determined decisions. And I think, I'm quicker to the draw. But
do you just ask so you do what I do? You ask your wife who to vote for.
I often ask my wife because she's done the research on certain school board positions. She's better at ballot measures. I'm better. We often have.
What do you do, Caitlin? You're also in California, faced with a 4 pages of unknown names. What are you going to do?
I'm the researcher. Yeah.
Good. Because by trade you are, right?
Yes, exactly. But yeah, it's really important to know what's happening in your state, in your city, neighborhood, if you really care that much, which you probably should. But it's not easy. They definitely don't make it easy to figure out, yes, it's important that people in Congress understand the internet. Like, that's key.
Yeah, that would be a good thing. And judges, yeah.
Judges, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's like the bare minimum these days, and we don't see that.
There's no, I wish there were some quiz that, we gave all the candidates this quiz. What is IP? and then we could see their answers.
Doesn't BuzzFeed have one where you can just go through, you fill out all your positions and it tells you which candidates on a grid support? That would be great, right? I'm sure those do exist. I am kidding.
I go to Ballotpedia, which I think is a fairly good. It's nonpartisan, right? And I think it does
much information there.
There's a lot of information. Then our local newspaper has a debate and has a forum for candidates and stuff. I'm going to guess it's probably several days. It's probably 30 hours of work for me to figure out who I'm going to vote for. I don't blame people for not wanting to do that.
You are a good citizen. It's really hard to do.
I didn't say I was going to do it. I told you already. I'm asking my wife.
That's 30 hours for Lisa. I will not be doing.
Yeah. Well, but so I understand why you nailed it, Glenn. I am a fan of democracy, and it is hard work. And I don't think the bulk of voters do it. I think they that's why TV ads work. That's why opinion pages and editorials work. People want to be told how to vote.
Yep.
And this
getting back to Texas for a minute.
Yes.
And you can understand how if we're all confused about who to even vote for on these issues, how a court like the Fifth Circuit might be confused or swayed or it's somewhat in the dark as to how they should be considering an issue like an injunction like this. So it should come as no surprise that another circuit court has already held that a similar injunction in Florida should stand.
Right.
So right now we have a conflict, and that is the kind of thing that can involve the Supreme Court even at this injunctive level. So,
yes, but now we don't trust the Supreme Court anymore, so we're screwed.
Clarence Thomas has definitely indicated that he's on, he believes in regulating tech companies as if they were common carriers.
Yes.
He said a bunch of things about Section 230. So yeah, I don't know that taking it to the Supreme Court is really going to result in anything different. But yeah, I think it is important
for anybody
now that
for anybody who's not real thrilled with the leaked decision that just came out, that was authored by Justice Alito, and he is the justice in charge of overseeing the Fifth Circuit. So it would go to him to determine if this is going to stand or not.
So if
he can decide whether to involve the whole court, or he can just unilaterally decide yes or no.
What do they call that? The secret bench docket? What do they?
Yeah,
the midnight
secret docket. I think it's
the
called.
midnight docket.
Yeah. Shadow.
The shadow docket.
I will say, Kavanaugh, for anything you may think about Kavanaugh, the things he writes about commerce and free speech are more interesting than you would suspect. And I remember particularly because I try to hammer the drum about monopsony, which is the ability for a company to control what price it pays suppliers, essentially, the ability to corner a market on purchasing things like Amazon is a monopsony in part. And the new head of that, well, not new now, but the FTC head, I think we're going to talk about that later, Lena Khan, she wrote that great paper that was in part about monopsony and the inability of antitrust laws to affect situations in which the consumer price wasn't the issue. And Kavanaugh has written very interestingly about monopsony and other consumer protection issues. So I don't know. It's what's a mixed bag. Like on certain laws, certain things you're like, well, there's a 6-3 majority now, and others like, well, Roberts is going to shade, and maybe Kavanaugh and maybe. Now I'm blanking on the fellow whose name, the person who got appointed instead of
Gorsuch.
Gorsuch, thank you. Didn't want to say the wrong name there, but they might, in previous decisions, there's been 6-3 and 5-4 in which they've been involved.
You're saying that the conservative bloc isn't necessarily predictable when it comes to First Amendment.
I think on a few things, there's been some surprising stuff, or 7-2 decisions, things like that, where you'd be like, you'd think there would be a more, based on other decisions on sort of, I mean, there's the social progressive side, the progressive and privacy side, and then there's issues that are more mundane that affect commerce, where I think there is still a middle there, led by Roberts, who finds a majority.
There's, as the Ken White points out also in this thread, and I'm going to have to defer to you to understand this a little bit better, Denise, but there's language in the bill making it deliberately harder for sites to defend claims, and it made clear that people can keep suing in different Texas courts until a court with authority over all those courts says the law is invalid. Non-mutual issue preclusion and non-mutual claim preclusion are not defenses to an action brought into this section.
And because of all the constitutional challenges to this law, they've rapidly added language saying, hey, to the extent any of this law is held unconstitutional, it's severable, and the rest of the law goes into effect.
Wow.
So any court that wants to do away with this law is going to have to do away with the whole thing.
The Texas
pesky parts of it are going to remain.
Texas legislature and the AG are very good now at coming up with ways to circumvent the court. Anybody who doesn't agree with them, basically. Wow.
Yeah. I do think there's some interesting
These are good country
discussions
lawyers. Yeah.
there's some interesting discussions. There's going to be some interesting stuff for the court when it ultimately gets to a court to consider the constitutionality of this. You know, what exactly does it mean to restrict someone's viewpoint? For one thing, that's a little vague. And
well, also vague is 50 million monthly users. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not clear who would. The law does not say who would do the counting.
Right.
So and it's. I mean, it would perhaps almost certainly impact Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Wikipedia, and Pinterest. Boy, I'd hate for Wikipedia to be forced to kowtow to this.
Oh, God.
Possibly, but not definitely covered Twitter, LinkedIn, WordPress, Reddit. They're running the border here. Yelp, TripAdvisor, Discord.
Oh, boy.
Discord could be liable to this. So
back to showing irreparable harm. I mean, if that goes into effect and a slew of lawsuits starts to fall upon the companies you just mentioned, Leo, obviously, and debilitating lawsuits. The other interesting part is there seems to have been some effort, and I don't know if this is what the lawmakers intended, maybe, but there seems to have been some effort to discourage companies from just saying, well, out of Texas, no more Texas. And I don't know that would actually be effective. I
think the law prohibits that.
Well,
the law says you can't discriminate against people just because they're from Texas.
Right. But does that mean
you can't block them?
I'm not sure if that's how the law would be.
Or?
We're getting a little in the weeds here, but I'm not sure if that's how the law would be interpreted.
Okay.
That's certainly one interpretation.
That's
for sure.
Well, that's what they're trying to say is, by the way, you can't look at my IP address and say, well, we're not going to let you post on the site because of the Texas law.
Or maybe what it means is because you're from Texas and you have expressed a viewpoint that we do not want to maintain on the site, we will not carry your content. I don't know.
Could you make a Texas section? Like the smoking, like the smoking.
So if you're not, you have to,
smoking section.
You have to check. That's right. You're not from Texas. If you excluded from
it's
that.
By the way, it's not just Florida and Texas. The EU now is proposing that all your private chats, this would be WhatsApp, this would be Signal, this would be Facebook Messenger, scanned for child abuse. It would eliminate effectively any kind of encryption. The European Commission a couple of days ago revealed long-awaited proposals aimed at CSAM, child sexual abuse material. The proposed law creates a new EU center to deal with child abuse content, introduces, and this is the key, obligations for tech companies to detect, report, block, and remove CSAM from their platforms. And you don't get to say, oh, it's encrypted, we can't see into it. You're responsible. Including grooming, which is a very nebulous term, that really poses some real problems. I mean, grooming is very subtle, right? How do you know it's grooming?
Yeah, I've got two teenage children who have been relatively savvy online. No major conflicts that they've gotten into. And we've always had a policy. We signed a technology contract with them when they were much younger.
That's wise.
And said, here's what you can do and can't do. And here's, and then of course they violated many provisions of it. Did we sue them? No, not like that couple.
We sent them to Texas
suing over a lack
for
of
a spanking.
We did not. Yes.
Yeah.
We did not, but we have always had great negotiating with them. So when we discover they've done something they shouldn't, they feel terrible, which is how, that's good. They know they did something they shouldn't have. And we talk through like what the risk would have been and what could have happened. So, but it was important to set the limits up front. And I don't think many parents do that, unfortunately, because the kids are savvier than the parents.
Well, good news. If you're in Europe, parents don't have to. Because
that's right. The government will just do it for you.
The government will do it for you.
It always works.
If it's passed, and this is always a tricky thing with the EU because they propose, they pass, then the individual countries have to approve and talk about enforcement. So it's always hard to know where in this it's right now it's a proposed thing, but if it's passed, tech companies would have to conduct. It's basically what Apple said they were going to do. That there was a whole furor, and Apple backed down. They said tech companies must start installing and operating technologies to detect CSAM. And I guess really end-to-end encryption would be dead in this case, because they say specifically it has to be used even when end-to-end encryption is in place. And obviously that means there's no end-to-end encryption, or you couldn't do it. So this is not just Texas and Florida. This is the world coming for you.
Tech companies are definitely nervous about what's happening in Europe right now, because the EU is just like every couple weeks they're coming out with legislation. They're going to force all the messaging apps to work together. So iMessage will be forced to open up. WhatsApp will be forced to open up. They're on a tear right now. They are totally their antitrust chief is just, she just wants to make sure that everything is fair for consumers, and tech companies are very nervous about what's happening there.
Margaret Vestager. I asked last week Alex Kantrowitz, who's a big technology guy, if he thought on balance the EU laws like GDPR were good or bad. He said they've all been bad. They haven't affected the change we wanted. See, because I thought, well, at least there's some privacy protections, that the EU is putting forward. But the unintended negative consequences have been horrific. And, you get these cookie banners. Great, thank you very much. Without any real privacy.
Accept all cookies, and just move on with your life.
Move on, yeah. All right, well, that was our Elon.
Does anybody see the irony in Elon wanting to do away with moderation and the EU going full steam ahead with all forms of moderation it can muster?
Yeah, I mean, this is another argument that Elon should just drop it like a hot potato. Does he really want to get in this battle? Maybe he does. He seems like he kind of likes the fisticuffs. All right, one more Elon story, then we're going to take a break. I can't resist.
It's like candy.
It's like candy. I love it. On Tuesday, Elon praised Chinese workers for burning the 3 a.m. oil. He said that there's just a lot of super talented, hardworking people in China who strongly believe in manufacturing. They won't just be burning the midnight oil. They'll be burning the 3 a.m. oil. They won't even leave the factory type of thing, whereas in America, people are trying to avoid going to work at all.
Is he having his cars made in a prison?
It is effectively. It's the closed loop system. That's how they're doing it with COVID, where it's a sealed building, and you sleep in the factory. Oh. There are no labor rights, I think, and there's no unions. That's for sure. It's funny. It's a communist state. You'd think there'd be unions. Elon loves it. Elon loves it because he can make people work 120-hour weeks. I think that was singularly tone deaf for him to say that, given the life of the Chinese worker in these factories is far from wonderful. $1,500 a month in his gigafactory.
He's always so facile about everything, though. He doesn't do any. This is my problem. Jeff Bezos. I don't know if we have that later.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Has started mouthing off. Look, I think I've said this. I know Jeff Bezos. He hired me at Amazon in '96. I gave him a bunch of advice, and no, I did not make $1 billion from it, unfortunately. But I worked there 6 months, and I had lunch with him all the time, talked to him all the time. Never knew he was going to become a supervillain. Never thought he had this sort of disregard for other people. And now he's on Twitter making all these economic pronouncements and things like he knows something. And I'm like, running one company in a voracious manner that disregards workers' health and rights, that runs roughshod across local regulation, that is in reported, and regular violations of various laws that it's had to settle civil suits, all these things. Maybe it's become a better company now than it used to be by force and offering better wages and so forth. But it's the same thing. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all these people, they want to be able to have diktats. They want to be able to say things that are unquestioned, that let them assert a version of reality that is poorly researched. They don't want to do the work.
Something happens when you become a billionaire, I think. In 96, Bezos was rich, but he wasn't mega rich, right?
He drove a Civic and he lived in a tiny apartment and walked to work. And I thought he was a pretty nice guy at the time, but I thought Amazon, it was actually going to collapse. There were so many problems with it in 97. I was like, I'm out of here. I got other things to do with
Oh, what a fool.
I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. No, I've got no
but I think,
regrets.
So when people say, oh, you're really dismissing Elon's accomplishments, I think it's not unusual. Same thing with Bezos. These guys, absolutely great accomplishments early on. Something happens. When you become that rich and that powerful, you become detached from the reality of normal folks. And you're suddenly living in this bubble where no one says no to you. And you suddenly think every pronouncement flowing from your lips is manna from the heavens.
Howard Schultz is a great example. He ran for president. Why did he run for president? Even he didn't know why he ran for president.
Starbucks CEO. Yeah.
Starbucks CEO. I mean, this is right. We have all of our local homegrown, our CEOs here in Seattle. And Bill Gates was smart enough not to run for president. And I think that was a good idea. But Howard Schultz put himself out there and he had nothing to say.
If Elon weren't born, was born in America, I think he'd be running for president. But he's born in South Africa, so he can't. But on the other hand, I'm not going to put it past him in trying to change the Constitution, so he can't. Joe Biden.
Who knows if in his game of fifth level three-dimensional chess, he's trying to help the U.S. economy or hurt it, but by praising the Chinese factory system and Chinese working conditions.
It's not what we want.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't help the U.S. at all.
No, not what we want. So Biden tweets, you want to bring down inflation? And by the way, these are fighting words. Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. Oh my God, what sacrilege.
Weird.
To which Jeff Bezos replies, by the way, thank you, Twitter, for giving us a chance to hear from these people. What would they do without Twitter? The newly created disinformation board at Twitter should review this tweet from Joe Biden, or maybe they need to form a new non-sequitur board instead. Raising corporate taxes is fine to discuss. Taming inflation is critical to discuss. Mushing them together is just misdirection. Although I have to say thank you to Twitter, because immediately in the replies, a number of distinguished economists said, no, that's exactly how it works. That's exactly how it works. You want to reduce inflation, tax the corporations. Biden was not wrong. And so it's good. That's one of the things that Twitter does give you is a conversation. And I think at its best, that's what Twitter offers us is if we can get it to be, reasonable, not crazy, and not threatening violence.
We're in a weird position in Seattle because we have. Oh, sorry. Oh no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, conversation at that level of that degree of power is something pretty remarkable. I remember when Sun Microsystems CEO, was it Jonathan Schwartz was his name?
Yes.
Had a blog.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when he had a blog?
We loved Schwartz.
Man, that was incredible.
Yes, of all the CEOs, he would actually say something.
Right.
It was
great. And this was sort of pre-Twitter, but it's the same sort of zeitgeist of, you're actually getting these people's unfiltered thoughts and responses back to them from people who actually know what they're talking about and can maybe persuade them to think differently. It's pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Bezos is no longer the CEO of anything. Well, maybe he is at Blue Origin. I don't know. But he's no longer running Amazon. But still, it's good that he can say what he thinks. And the president can say what he thinks, and then people with knowledge can weigh in. That was a good conversation. Bezos was wrong. It was a good conversation.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. That's our Elon Musk segment for the week. I wish I could say forever, but Elon is, if not, you know what? this is what Trump was very good at, right? Was keeping the conversation circling in the, where you, controlling the Overton window, getting the conversation where you want it to be. Elon's the master of that. And I think he learned from Donald Trump, to be honest with you. Maybe he didn't have to learn anything. Maybe he knew all along. Great panel, Glenn. It's great to have you finally on Twitter. On Twit. It's not Twitter. God damn it.
Is Leo launching a bid for Twitter?
Oh, God,
Are you buying?
No.
It's come out.
In fact, I found an article that's still online about me quitting Twitter because of the confusion between Twitter and Twit. Back in 2007. It's still online. I quit for about 6 months, and then I realized this is a fool's errand. So I rejoined it. But I was right, Denise? There was some confusion. I still have to explain that we're not Twitter, and that Twitter came after Twit and all of that. But, that's life. Denise Howell's also here, the Internet's lawyer, denisehowell.info. It's great to have you all, as always.
Always good to be here.
And a brand new, wonderful contributor to the show, Caitlin McCary, is news editor at Protocol. Love Protocol. You said you were at Gizmodo and Macworld. Mm-hmm. Where else?
Tom's Guide.
Oh, wow.
And I actually started in local news. I was a reporter at the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Oh, nice. Yeah. A real reporter. Wow. Mm-hmm. Protocol is a great site, still free. Thank you. Protocol.com. And well worth subscribing to the newsletters. It's you've got great people working there. It's really fantastic, including our own Megan Maroney, who's one of your
the icon, Megan Maroney.
The icon. Yes. The icon. And I do want to talk to you. You do a podcast called the Source Code Podcast, and I do want to talk to you. We got a lot to talk about with Bitcoin and crypto and NFTs and more. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. Our show today brought to you by the best thing I've bought in a long time. About 6 months ago, Kevin Rose had convinced me, and then he was on Twit, and Amy Webb was on, and she bought it, and then she said, this is the best thing ever. Now I've got one. About 6 months ago, I got my 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover. Put it over my existing mattress. 8 Sleep also sells mattresses if you want to get a whole new mattress, but they do something remarkable. It's the most advanced solution on the market for something called thermoregulation. The Pod Pro cover can bring your mattress temperature down to 55 degrees or as hot as 110 degrees or anywhere in between. And there's reason why you want it to do that. And by the way, it's got 2 sides, so each side of the bed can have its own sleep stages. It measures biometrics. It measures bedroom temperature. It reacts intelligently to all that input to create the optimal sleeping environment by manipulating the temperature. You start by putting in the temperatures you think you want. I like to get into a warm bed, so I have it warmed up. But then as I sleep, as I go into deeper and deeper sleep, it cools down. That's actually what your body wants and expects. And you probably know that if you've ever woken up burning hot in the middle of the night. That's definitely not conducive to sleep. And then I have it set so around 7 or 8 a.m. when I'm about to get up, that's the alarm. My alarm is the bed starts to warm up, and I wake up very naturally. It's amazing. As a result, 8 Sleep users fall asleep up to 32% faster, reduce sleep interruptions by 40%, and overall get a more restful sleep. I don't have to tell you how important sleep is. It's nature's gentle nurse, the best medicine. It can do so much for your health and just for your state of mind. Lower your blood pressure to decrease the risk of heart disease, even reduce the risk of Alzheimer's, and yet 30% of Americans struggle with sleep. Temperature, one of the main causes. I think we're all starting to learn now that sleeping cool is really important. But I like to get in a warm bed, so I do that. Lisa likes it really warm. My wife really turns hers up. Doesn't affect my side. She gets her sleep information, her sleep, metrics. The bed's very good at that, by the way, because you're sleeping right on it. So I have a number of ways to measure sleep effectiveness, but I think my 8 Sleep is really the best way to do it. What did I get here? 80. Oh, I had a bad night. There's my heart rate. My sleep fitness is only 78%. I have to say, though, if I go back in time, it's gotten better and better. I've gotten up to 99% sleep from this. Here's the temperature dial. You could see that at 10 p.m. I have +3, then it goes down a little bit, +2, Wakes me up at +3. You control that, and the sleep doctor will the autopilot will automatically modify that if it notices you're restless and so forth. Here's an insight. Your resting heart rate stayed high for longer than usual. I must have been up to something. Your sleeping heart rate was a little high last night. Really great stuff. Sleep better, more comfortably with 8 Sleep. It makes me a better person, and I think it will make your nights better, too. Go to 8sleep.com/twit. They've got great Memorial Day savings now through June 6th. You can cool down this summer with 8 Sleep, now shipping within the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. Those hot summer nights, imagine having an air conditioner in your bed. And if you're listening after June 6th, still go to 8sleep.com/twit. Check out the Pod Pro cover. Get you $150 off at checkout. The Memorial Day savings are even better. So go right now. Check it out. 8sleep.com/twit. We're big fans. And if you're doing it after June 6th, $150 off at checkout on the Pod Pro cover. EIGHT. Spell it out. 8sleep.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. Google I.O. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you guys tell me what you think of it. Google I.O. was this week. Caitlin, were you excited, impressed? What did you think?
I was intrigued. I wouldn't say I was impressed, but there were a lot of, forward-looking announcements. Like there's a lot of hardware coming down the pike, which I think is really interesting. I'm really curious to see the Pixel Watch because Google has just let Wear OS languish and has not been spurring its partners to really innovate, either on the watch side or on the component side. So I'm really, really curious to see how the Pixel Watch turns out. And I think trying Android tablets again is a really interesting move.
That is so weird because they basically let tablets languish. And the real problem has always been with Android tablets, the developers aren't making appropriate software, right, that sizes itself appropriately. So it sounded like Google, they don't have a tablet. They said maybe next year.
Yeah.
But it sounded like they were trying to encourage developers, but could you please write some software for tablets?
I mean, if the iPad has a problem still with, adopting, Mac apps for tablets, Android has just it's
terrible.
It's a disaster.
And yet it could be so good. Samsung made some pretty good tablets. Google themselves that had a 7-inch tablet that was beloved. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, they've just kind of abandoned the marketplace. Denise, I don't know. Do you follow these Google announcements? Do you care? You don't have to.
No, I don't have to. I think it's interesting. I think it's good for Apple to have competition.
That's true. Absolutely, yeah. And who better than, Samsung right now is the only competition, but I'd like to see Google step up. The Pixel 6 is a nice phone.
Yeah.
Doesn't this reflect... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was done.
It's doesn't this reflect? It feels like one of my favorite things that fake Steve Jobs back in the day wrote was about the Open Handset Alliance, and I quote this regularly because it was a great insight from a fake character, and it was winners don't join alliances, and that was sort of the story.
Did the real Steve Jobs say that? Because that sounds like something Steve would have said. Only the fake Steve Jobs.
It was a fake Steve Jobs. And I was like, it's chef's kiss quote is the Open Handset Alliance was a way for Google to dominate a segment of the industry and to give handset makers and telephone carriers, wireless carriers, a way to have skin in the game and control the outcome in a way that Apple wasn't allowing, right? But in the end, what have we wound up with is you've got really Samsung. I know there's other companies in the business, but are any of them making a majority or they're making real profit doing anything besides Samsung in the space or doing innovative things at this point? They were a few years ago. So does it wind up being Google and Samsung are really the Android makers and Google has to essentially take over that? Isn't that, by announcing a 2023 tablet, isn't that kind of saying, well, we're getting into the hardware? Not getting into, I realize, but we're going to make this a priority in the way that Apple has. It just feels like they've kind of ignored a lot of stuff going by, hoping partnerships would make it happen when they weren't as interested.
Well, and
unfair?
remember,
I don't
they
even
didn't
know.
say anything during I.O. about Chrome OS, which is arguably a very successful, second only to Android in terms of success. They didn't even mention it at I.O., which was weird. So I looked up the fake Steve Jobs quote, which came from 2007 and is just as applicable today. He says, does it not occur to anyone that Google is desperately grasping at straws lately? This is 2007. Nothing they've ever done outside of search has ever worked. This is 2007. It's still true 15 years later.
Okay, here's something that caught my eye from Google I/O. Imagine you are on the Italian Riviera. You are sporting some very, very cool, lightly tinted sunglasses on the beach. And you are so looking forward to interacting with the Italian local populace, a la Stanley Tucci on his show. Or what have you. You're gonna go do you're gonna do some cooking. You're gonna do some dining, but you do not speak Italian. Didn't they have the glasses that are going to translate for you?
But here's the problem: the Italians are going to look at me wearing these spectacles and say, "Get out of here, you ugly person! You must be American."
They need a better form factor.
It's early days yet. They're very nerdy.
Yes.
But this is cool. But see, this is my problem, and it's just what you were saying, Caitlin. Forward-looking. They always do this at Google I/O. They talk about stuff. Remember the whole big thing with the Google Earbuds, and you'd put them in, and somebody else would put them in, and you'd be talking each in a different language, and you'd hear them in your language, and they'd hear you. And remember that? That was 5 years ago. Where are those? Wow. They never came out.
It's a measure of how Microsoft doesn't promote themselves very well anymore. I think Microsoft's doing some great work. It's been very solid for years, and they added a feature to Skype. I think it was years ago, and it's stunningly perfect translation, but also transcription. So my wife has some vision impairment issues. I know a lot of people with low vision and hearing impairment and so forth. I did an interview once with somebody who had no hearing but was using an AI translator to transcribe as I spoke. So these are incredible innovations. And so Skype has had this feature built in, and nobody knows it exists, I think.
Yeah, I remember when
very, very, very
Microsoft
good.
announced it was a very cool demo.
It works.
And it works. It's here, and you can use it.
And everyone's like, oh, all right, whatever. It's one of the most advanced thing that's ever been released in this area, maybe. And that's available instantly. And I was like, oh, no, Google, that feature they had that they never released. That's the focus. So it's kind of funny.
Google does have real-time captioning, which I love, in the Pixel 6. And I think they're rolling it out to Android 12 as well. And they said that they will have translation in that, which again, could be very cool. That might be more closer than these glasses. Ultimately, these glasses are great. I mean, they showed a video of two women. The mother only spoke Mandarin. The daughter only spoke English. They're wearing these glasses. As her mother speaks, she's seeing an English translation and the heads-up display. So she's looking right at her mother, but she's seeing the text in front of, projected in front of her. So she can, and then she can talk back in English, and her mother. Again, a wonderful demo. I thought a great demo, but a demo only. And it will remain to be seen. And of course, they aren't going to be so ugly. Although they're not as bad as Google Glass, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. But
they need to follow Meta's lead and partner up with someone like Ray-Ban or better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but there's a problem because you got to get a computer in there. What they didn't show is the battery life is 4.5 minutes, probably. I mean, it's got to fit in the temple. This is a hard thing to do with the current technology. So this is, it's very Google, where they show stuff, but it might as well be science fiction. Even so, they did announce the watch. Caitlin's all excited, and I think it's a nice looking watch, and I'd love to see them do something with Android Wear. And as I agree with you, Denise, I think it'd be nice to see some competition for the Apple Watch, which I'm wearing. But they said, but it's not it's available this fall with the Pixel 7. It's like, okay. So, they announced the Pixel 6a, available in 2 months. July 21st pre-order, July 28th delivery.
I'm wearing an Apple Watch too. What is the killer app for an Apple Watch?
I think it's different depending on who you are.
Yeah.
For most people, it's health, right? And this is where Google, because they bought Fitbit, could make Android Wear as good as the Apple Watch in terms of that. I don't know if they will be, because even the Fitbits, I think the heart rate monitor on Apple is better than anything, even the Fitbits, right? Am I wrong? I don't know. Does anybody wear a Fitbit?
Yeah,
I wear an old style Fitbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fitbit's definitely gotten way better in recent years. And I think Fitbit software has always been really good, but Fitbit's hardware team, there's some questionable decisions being made over there. So the Pixel Watch looks great, and that was like a big concern. So if they can figure out how to marry the Fitbit software and fix some of the problems with Wear OS, then it looks like a really, it looks like it will be a potential Apple Watch rival. And I think the timing, I think they announced, coming this fall because like people are wondering what to buy. They know the Apple Watch comes out every September with the iPhone. So I think setting some expectations there is good. Or maybe they're trying to rush something to beat Samsung.
Part of this is because it always leaks out, right? As the Pixel Watch did, and the Pixel 7, they even showed pictures of that, because it's going to leak out because they can't control it.
I mean, they've been talking about, there have been Pixel Watch rumors for years and years and years. Like, yeah.
I feel like at Google at this point is just saying, yeah, you're right. Here's what it looks like. But they didn't talk about features at all. So to answer your question, Denise, I think health is one thing, but it's got to be as good as the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch, I think Apple does a huge amount, and I'm not an Apple fanboy, but I think they do a huge amount of machine learning stuff with people doing a lot of things to figure out what are the rhythms of those exercises so they can accurately measure them. And I think that they really are the kings of this. So for a lot of people, there's a great book that just came out, Trip Mickle's After Steve. In fact, I'm going to interview Trip on Thursday. Really wonderful, reading it right now. When the Apple Watch, when Johnny Ive designed the Apple Watch, he envisioned it as a fashion statement. Yeah. He that's why they did an $89,000 gold one, because he saw it not as as technology. He wanted to compete with Rolex. He saw it as a fashion statement. And then later, as time went by and Johnny left and Tim Cook kind of gained ascendancy, it was clear that it was about fitness. But I still do things. For instance, I have drafts on my complication. I record notes all the time.
Oh, that's good.
So it's useful for that.
I think it's interesting that you hit on fitness, because I've tried to have fitness be a thing that is useful for me on the watch, like I'll track my workouts and things. But then I guess I'm just not the self-data maven that many people are. I know that I worked out. I don't need my watch to tell me that.
It does not count unless your ring's closed. In fact, I'll go to work out with my trainer for an hour and I'll curse myself. Damn it, I forgot my watch. Like that didn't count. Like that did not count because I didn't get the rings.
So there's something wrong with that, right?
I agree.
But then really the only thing, people in chat in response to my question said the clock. That's the killer.
No, it's a terrible watch.
What time it is.
No, it's a terrible watch.
It's not a great watch, no.
I was going to say that and then thought I was being too facetious because...
No, I think it's actually a valid point.
Timex makes a much better watch for 1/10 the price.
True. But the thing that keeps me wearing this thing is I don't always have my phone with me.
Yes.
And yet I always want to be reachable by my family and clients and it tells me.
So for you, notifications are a big deal.
Yes. Yeah. It tells me when I'm getting a phone call and lets me decide how to respond to
Do you answer on the watch ever?
Sometimes, yeah.
It's like when they first put phones on airplanes. And you go, you won't believe where I am right now.
Jeff Bezos, by the way, big user of Airphone. He would call we were having a hiring meeting. I don't think this is still covered by any non-disclosure agreements. We're having a hiring meeting for a administrative assistant for a VP. And he called in from the Airphone to contribute to somebody who was 7 languages. He used that thing, and he would have loud conversations on airplanes about corporate matters all the time.
And he was on commercial? He was flying commercial?
Yeah, he was on commercial.
This is how long ago that was, by the way.
Before the IPO. He would fly and talk, run up these huge airphone bills. So anyway, there you go, little insight.
His air yacht
Business genius.
It was, and they were so loud. So now you do it. You won't believe I'm talking to you on my watch. Nobody's ever impressed, by the way, when I do that. Because actually it sounds just like a phone. It doesn't sound any worse.
So say Apple used the watch as a way to iterate on this idea, right? There was nobody who they felt was big enough in the wear space. So they came out with a thing that was engineered around fashion. They didn't know exactly what it would do, what the market was. And they went through a few versions. They're like, oh, it's about fitness. And then they leaned into it.
Exactly.
And, I have an underlying heart condition. It's fully treatable. I should live a long and healthy life.
Oh, good.
And I don't need it monitored constantly. But I got to tell you, the EKG feature in an Apple Watch, I haven't bought one yet. I owned one briefly when the 1.0 came out. I tested it for a while and I sold it to somebody else, and I haven't owned one since. But they're slowly I need a little quantification. I work at a desk all day. I need a little quantification to force me to reconcile what I'm doing. And then these extra features, the pulse. I mean, I don't know if any of you know, but I know people who this has happened to, but I know at least, I want to say it's 3 people now who an Apple Watch has warned them about a cardiac event, and it may have saved their life. And a couple of them have written articles about it.
Yeah.
But it's, then there's, and that's an incredible benefit. So they have found use cases that are, not fitness is general, but I think there's a lot of people worried generally about health who are happy to get one for the fall sensor, the EKG feature.
I got my mom an Apple Watch just for the fall sensor. She's 89, and I wanted her to be able to call for help. It was funny. It was kind of hysterical at Google I/O. Remember, we've all seen the Apple ads. It was during the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl of, I've crashed and I don't know and I can't, and they're calling for help, and the help comes from the Apple Watch. Google showed the same ad. They did the same thing. And it's like, did you not see that Apple already kind of did that ad? I guess they want to show that you can call for help with your Google phone. Well, not yet, but soon you can call for help with your Google. Don't get hurt yet. Wait for a little bit. I feel like Google's lost its mojo, to be honest with you. Just like fake Steve Jobs 15 years ago. I feel like they're desperately searching for a follow-up, and search and advertising is keeping them afloat, but they have yet to find anything that is, that they're good enough at, to be honest with you. I mean, Android's successful, but not because of Google, because of Samsung and 100 other manufacturers.
Now, Leo, they're exceptionally good at getting fined by the EU.
And that. That's their secret power.
They just have too much going, though. Google Fi was an interesting idea that they kind of lost steam on. What was the thing we saw so many ads for the Google
blank
phone
was a good
service?
idea that they lost steam on. That's every single Google Wave, Google Plus, Google.
Do you follow Killed by Google on Twitter? It's very active. They have to post all the time.
The other thing I like to follow is Web3 is going just great. We're going to talk about crypto, Web3. Caitlin's got a lot to say about that. She does a podcast about it. That's coming up in just a little bit. So stay tuned. Great to have all 3 of you. This is fun. I told Caitlin before the show, think of it as a cocktail party. And we're just all kind of talking about stuff we're interested in. The only thing missing is an adult beverage. So please, during this break, if you'd like to get a snifter of brandy or something, go right ahead.
I have my Twit coffee.
Yeah, I saw that. Me too. Yeah, me too. I have to drink coffee just to keep up with you guys. I keep the brain going. Let me talk a little bit about, since we were talking about crypto, and you've probably seen what's happened to crypto over the last week. Our show today brought to you by Wealthfront. Every once in a while, I'll see my kids, for instance. My daughter was doing her taxes, and she said, "Dad, do I have to report crypto?" I said, "Well, did you make any money?" She says, "Oh, no, I lost a lot of money." I said, "No, you don't have to report that. It's okay." She said, "Whew." She was big on Dogecoin. Perhaps you remember it. This is what I tell my kids, and I tell you, and I especially tell young people, and I wish somebody had told me this when I was in my 20s. Sure, it's fun to play the stock market. Timing is so hard. You can't really know when a stock's going to take off or when it's going to go down. In fact, maybe you've learned that. Same thing with Bitcoin, same thing with any crypto. Look, stock trading, crypto, it's fun. It's a wild ride, but the thrill of risking it all is best enjoyed in moderation, like, playing roulette or eating tacos from the taco truck down the street. If you're playing the market, I hope for your sake you're stashing some safer money in a place like Wealthfront. Day trading stocks is not the secret to investing success. In fact, Wealthfront has a ton of data to show, this is important, that time in the market almost always beats timing the market. Wealthfront has globally diversified, very important words, globally diversified portfolios. They do a lot of things you would do if you wanted to pay attention all the time, like tax loss harvesting, taking advantage of losses to boost your returns with automatic tax breaks, rebalancing automatically so you don't get too heavy in any one sector. Those are all done automatically, so you don't have to spend a lot of energy thinking about it. Now Wealthfront's gotten, it's nice because people have, in the past you put money in Wealthfront and you say, I have a certain amount of risk tolerance, here's my time frame, I'm saving for a college fund for my kids or to buy my first house or maybe for retirement, and then they would make the investments based on what you said. Now you can do a little more. They have a portfolio of funds handpicked by their financial experts in categories you might be interested in, like social responsibility, clean energy, yes, even crypto, cannabis. So if you have an interest in a certain sector, you can use Wealthfront to get involved in those sectors. Again, using their tools to build your wealth over time with a globally diversified portfolio. When we first started talking about Wealthfront, it was early days. I'm so proud of them. They've done so well because they're doing the right thing. Now, $27 billion in assets. 500,000 people are building their wealth with Wealthfront. Investopedia just named them best robo-advisor for 2022, and we're not even halfway through the year. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, you go to wealthfront.com/twit. That's WEALTHFRONT, wealthfront.com/twit to start building your wealth. It's easy, it's automatic. Wealthfront.com/twit. Get started today. Wealthfront.com/twit. So that's why I always say, I have a Bitcoin wallet with 7.85 Bitcoin in it, which has gone up and gone down, but I forgot the password. So I am regardless, I'm long hold, right? I am. I'm going to
You're long
ride
hold
it out.
until quantum computing is a real
I
thing.
figure
And someone
before
can
I'm
break
dead, I'll have a 100 qubit computer that can solve it. Meanwhile, I'm just going to hold it, right? There have been moments when I've wondered, because that's almost that would be almost $500,000 at its peak. Crypto's crashed a little bit. Caitlin, you cover crypto and other similar things in your podcast. Now, you're a young person. Do you look at crypto thinking, oh, that's the investment of the future?
No, absolutely not.
Because you saw the ad. Was it FTX that had Larry David saying no to everything? And it's like, okay, boomer, you just don't understand. And every time I say, it's just a pyramid scheme, don't get involved in NFTs or crypto. And people say, okay, boomer, I'm not taking advice from you.
I mean, it is obviously a wildly speculative asset. And we've seen over the last few months that, as the war in Ukraine has been going on, inflation, gas prices, there are just a lot of economic factors happening right now. And everyone who seemed to have some foresight started getting out of crypto toward the end of last year. And now it's hitting, retail investors, just like regular people who bought into the hype, and they're left holding the bag.
Isn't that interesting?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Weird how people who had incentive to make a lot of money got out. But
you mean when Matt Damon told me fortune favors the brave, he wasn't?
I need to check on Reese Witherspoon's crypto holdings.
By the way, none of those famous people who pushed crypto are talking right now.
No, of course not. And obviously taking financial advice from celebrities is a horrible idea, but people are easily influenced, and crypto seemed like, it was on an upward trajectory that wasn't going to end until it violently did. So yeah, it's been really actually heartbreaking to watch people on Reddit and Twitter talk about how they've put their life savings in, various currencies, and it's horrible.
So on one day, last Thursday, $200 billion erased from the crypto market because people are getting out. Let me just see what Bitcoin is at right now.
I would point out there is an interesting thing, which is that I wonder how much actual money people lost. I think there's a lot of stories of individuals investing at the wrong time, but because Bitcoin doesn't have market makers,
no one knows.
$200 billion shaved off is artificial. It could be that the actual cash loss that was put in was $5 billion.
Right.
So there is the sense that with the huge run up, and you've seen those numbers about the percentage of people who own any Bitcoin who actually own, it's a very tiny percentage own the majority of Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think, or more than the majority. And so those people, especially people who've held it for a long period of time, they had a lot of paper losses, which can feel very painful. So I'm not disregarding. I know a lot of people did buy in, but
my
it's not the buying
401k
in.
had a very significant paper loss as well. I mean,
was it tied to Bitcoin? Do you think it's tied to Bitcoin?
It was tied to the full faith and credit of the fine U.S. economy.
Yeah.
But
I've been watching the chart on my too, and it's very painful some days. Very, very painful to watch.
It's easy to forget the gains we made over the last few years, right? It's been a bull market for a decade or more. So, we made a lot of gains then, and it's just a shame to see it go to hell.
I just told my children they're going to have to support me when I'm old, and that's now their responsibility.
So you said an interesting thing, Caitlin. I'm really curious. Why is Bitcoin going down at the same time as the U.S. stock market and other investments are tanking? It's not tied to those. Doesn't gold go up when stocks go down? Wouldn't crypto be a good investment now?
Well, because no. Crypto is just like an inherently risky investment, much riskier than,
but
traditional stocks.
Gold is made up too. The price of an ounce of gold has nothing to do with its actual intrinsic value.
Right. Like we all, money means anything and is worth anything because we all agree to it, right?
Right. It's all fiat.
Right.
Yes. If we all decide money is worth nothing, then
So I really puzzled because I do think that when the stock market tanks, as it has, people go to other investments, non-traditional investments, like gold. And I would have thought that Bitcoin would have benefited from that. I'm just curious. Any thought, Denise? Any thoughts? I don't know if you're the crypto pro or crypto con. Actually,
I'm not. I tend to think about how and whether crypto should be regulated, and of course there's a call. There are always calls to regulate it because it's at this point not regulated. And the stock market is, and as you point out, people are perfectly capable of losing their shirt in the stock market.
Yeah.
So apparently our Treasury Secretary is concerned about stablecoins, Janet Yellen.
Well, that's another interesting story, isn't it?
Yes. Those would be coins that are somehow supposedly tied to the actual value of the dollar.
And yet Luna, which is in theory a stable coin, has dropped 99% in the
Luna is
Luna
the currency tied to Terra, which is the stable coin.
Oh, I'm sorry. But Terra went down too, right?
Yeah, there was a.
I thought stable
I did
coins
not even know this.
Could not.
No,
go
these
down.
are algorithmic stable coins, which I did. I wrote a book about cryptocurrency last year.
I didn't know
algorithmic
that.
stable coins.
Well, welcome, expert.
Well,
Yes, can
I think Caitlin will know.
Glenn
more.
and Caitlin please explain all
Yes.
this?
No, Glenn, I actually was not super familiar with the concept of an algorithmic stablecoin, which has never been stress tested before. And that's why the TerraUSD situation has gone so wildly off the rails. But Glenn, if you can dive into like the technical aspects of the algorithmic part of the stablecoin.
Well, sure. And, the reason it didn't come up last year is I don't think people were as widely invested. I think more and more infrastructure got built in. This book, by the way, it started as like a neutral, well, I don't think you should invest in it, but here's how the technology works and what you should do. And it's turning slowly into a stone invested. It's going to be like a screed by the time I revise it lately. But, a stable coin is supposed to be backed just like a money market fund. You don't want to break the buck. That's what happened during the Lehman Brothers meltdown is the buck was almost broken on funds that are supposed to maintain $1, right? And of real money. And that was going to cause a huge upset in the entire financial market and required massive worldwide intervention to prevent a complete financial meltdown in 2008, right? It was 2008. So the stablecoin idea is very similar. Tether is the organization that has the highest valued one. And they said at one point they maintained $1 in reserves for every dollar they were issuing. And that has turned out to be entirely not true through their own reporting and work by a lot of other people who are trying to figure out. They own a lot of commercial paper. They own Bitcoin. They own a lot of stuff that's not dollar. So that's allegedly the best stable coin. It has tens of billions of dollars in it. The TerraUSD thing is algorithmic stablecoin in which this is the complicated thing. It's kind of like the two are interlinked so that if one waxes, the other should wane because there's a fixed exchange rate between the two.
The Terra is a UST. It's been set up algorithmically so it can be redeemed or minted for exactly $1 worth of Luna at any time. That's the problem, though, because the value of $1 of Luna has dropped 99.7%.
That's exactly. But neither Luna or Terra are worth anything. It's like it's exactly Bitcoin. It's like
from what you're saying, then this isn't a regulatory problem. This is a fraud and false advertising problem.
Sure sounds like it. Well, except that the Fed and other government banks have all said we're going to have to do crypto sometime, and it's going to be tied to some form of stable coin. And this is why Janet Yellen is terrified that Terra is falling. It shouldn't.
It ties back to liquidity, though, and reserves. And so, what upholds Bitcoin? Why is Bitcoin worth $65,000 each at one point and $30,000 at another? The liquidity of the exchanges. So you have a small number of organizations that do not have super deep pockets. They're not central banks, where a bunch of people rush in and say, I want to sell Bitcoin. And they say, we will, they're making the market. So they're going to be marking it up and up and up, or, lower and lower and lower and lower because they don't want to be held with Bitcoin they can't resell to other suckers. So without a central bank, you have no way to prevent this kind of race to the bottom because the exchanges only possess a fraction of the reserves necessary to maintain the entire currency. A stable coin like Tether or USD, let's say Tether's USD, a dollar-denominated one, is supposed to overcome that by having actual reserves. So you can't break their buck, but in effect, they don't. They've been sued. I think the New York State Attorney General's office has a settlement with them. They're under investigation by all these organizations. I don't think you can redeem Tether in a lot of countries even. It's a mess.
So remember in the Great Depression, the run on the banks, banks have never kept all of the money that in theory they hold in the bank. You can't go to the bank and say, "Give me my money," but there are regulations about the percentage of money they're supposed to hold, right?
Well, thank you, Leo. I'm trying my best, Jimmy Stewart.
Shut the doors. They're coming for our money.
Your money's not here. It's in Mr. Ferrari's house.
Yes. And your money, you built the baseball. So, I don't know where we got a little sidetracked. But you're saying that ostensibly these stable coins claimed that they were fully backed. They were 100% backed by actual.
Well, Tether
holdings.
was backed. They alleged they were backed by actual cash reserves, like real cash money.
A percentage thereof, or the entire amount?
100%. 100%. Their thing was, at any point, you could redeem $1 of Tether for $1 in real fiat currency, and they were maintaining reserves. And at one point, their site said, we do this, and then the site stopped saying that, and then there's been lawsuits and investigations since. The algorithmic stablecoin says, we have 2 boxes with nothing in them, but we have slips of paper, and if this one starts to get low, we'll give you a certain number of slips of paper for the other, and then that box will fill up. There's no value to any of these slips of paper. They're just two empty boxes.
Right.
You know, it's weird. It's a double faith hypnosis thing. If you believe, you have to believe in both. If you stop believing in one, I guess you're supposed to believe more in the other. And people lost so much faith that, I mean, even in this case, the organization that sort of keeps Terra running, they have some Bitcoin reserves in order to help stabilize the price. And I think that's one of the stories, is that where did the Bitcoin go that they claimed they had, that they could push into this to push the price back up and stabilize the whole TerraLuna exchange.
Yeah. Somebody in our chat room, Denmos, is saying UST was attacked, that it was intentionally destabilized.
People claim that.
Interesting.
It's going to be tricky. A lot of people will cite things like BlackRock and other groups.
Well, it's rife
Citadel
for
and so forth, but it's
theory,
allegations. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And someone could have attacked it, but the question is, this is always the issue. If someone wants to attack a cryptocurrency, I mean, people have talked about, the 51% attack you could do against Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, where you control enough mining power, you could roll back transactions and double spend and do all these terrible things. But the issue is people have so much money invested, so someone would have to have no stake in TerraLuna and expend some amount of money or other cryptocurrency to destabilize it in the hopes of getting some gain, unless they're simply a troll, in which case they lose all this money. So there's something weird there, because why would you burn your own money? And I don't think that's been determined. They're putting a squeeze on something else that they had a hedge against. I don't know. I mean, that's the part that I don't think has been answered.
So
we're back to Elon again, aren't we?
Oh, comes back to Elon.
So I don't think even he would do that.
So there are some. By the way, Glenn's book, "Take Control of Cryptocurrency," is available. And you update that because it's a take control book?
Yeah, it's updated. I think it's a few months out of date, which means that everything has changed. I need to do other updates. So from January is the last time.
Yeah.
But I have argued with I've talked to the editor, I should say. Should we call it take control of not investing in cryptocurrency? Like, let's lean really into it. I don't want to give anybody.
Well, there are those who say that, the cryptocurrency requires the greater fool, right? The value of it depends on somebody coming along saying, well, I'll give you $60,000 for that Bitcoin. Have we run out of greater fools? Is that what happened? Did the pyramid collapse? Or, as some say, it's because of interest rates going up, that it's better to put your money somewhere else? I don't, I guess these are questions that just can't be answered. We just don't know. What do you say on your podcast, Caitlin, when this must come up, right?
Well, our most recent episode was about the crypto crash, and our lovely colleague, Owen Thomas, who is the fintech editor at Protocol, came to explain everything to us.
I got to get Alex Wilhelm, Owen Thomas, and maybe Glenn. I don't know. I got to get some people come in and explain all of this. The thing is, they can't either. I asked them and they don't. No one can explain this.
Right. It just, it seems like everything feels really destabilized right now.
Yeah,
and so
that might be the
real
crypto
story. Was the one thing. Yeah.
Crypto's big crash. It's the Protocol Source Code podcast, if you want to.
I have one quick theory, which is just that we don't understand how leveraged people are who invested. And because the liquidity is so low at these exchanges, it is possible that a relatively small number of people, including small investors, found that with the drop in the market, the rise in interest rates, they're concerned about paying bills. They suddenly realized that they needed to liquidate their Bitcoin or whatever holdings they had, and they liquidated, and it could require a small number of people moving out because of the liquidity, that it caused the price to crash so rapidly that larger players get involved, and you have algorithmic movements by, there's all these institutional investors now involved in cryptocurrency who are doing, second by second, millisecond arbitrage and all the other nonsense. So there could have been essentially almost an accidental crash as people pulled money out, which fed on itself.
Almost a flash crash, kind of.
Yeah, and then because those people actually need the money, they have to pay their rent or bills or mortgage or food, and so they took it out. And unless you have big institutional providers, central banks, and so forth supporting,
that's an interesting theory.
Financial instrument at that time, it can collapse. And
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's very interesting. There's
Glenn,
also
I think you nailed it.
I think
that's
so.
it.
Yeah.
I think we solved it.
it's a liquidity.
All right, we're
crisis.
done. That's it.
But I also
right.
I also think that people are starting to realize there's shenanigans going on. For instance, we're starting to learn in a lot of NFT situations. There's a lot of trading back and forth to boost the price up between people, selling it to themselves and buying it back, and selling it to themselves, buying it back to boost up the price, hoping then for a greater fool to come along and say, "Oh, I got to get that. Look at the price; it's going through the roof." And those shenanigans, I think, are scaring people. There's also the story of Coinbase, which
Oh my!
now I want to say this: I don't think Coinbase is going bankrupt. I don't think that's the issue. In fact, Brian Armstrong, who's the CEO, said there's no risk of bankruptcy. But they were required in their most recent SEC filing to say, should we go bankrupt? You, as somebody holding cryptocurrency in a custodial wallet at Coinbase, would not be like if your bank went belly up, you'd get insurance. It wouldn't be like that. If we went belly up, you'd be an unsecured creditor. In other words, get in line to get your money. And now Armstrong said, "Look, this is just legalese. We had to say it. We're not going bankrupt." But probably gives people a little cause to pause to think and say, "Oh, wait a minute! It's not insured. It's not a bank. It's In fact, I think probably a custodial wallet is a bad idea in general. You should do like me. You should have a wallet that you control and lose the password. I'm telling you, it's the
That's
safest.
the highest security you can have. You've talked
So
about
many
this
good
story before.
options.
The guy in England who has the drive that he's put in the dump. And
I think he
he's
gave
once-
up on it. Yeah.
I did. I mean, I feel terrible for him. I met a guy once. I was researching a story for The Economist back, I don't know, like 8 years ago. And there was a guy in Seattle I met up with. And it turned out, I found out later, he was personally generating in his apartment a single-digit number of Bitcoins, like a high single-digit number at that point, because he had happened to get some of the more faster chips during a brief window. And he said, "Oh yeah, I've got a dead drive over there. I've done everything to recover it. It's my off cold storage, and it has, I think it was like $250,000 in Bitcoin on it, which would be worth, I don't know, like $50 million, $100 million today." And it was just dead. It was dead. He had the keys, and I'm thinking, what percentage? How many ostensible fake tens of billions of dollars are just permanently in a dump or in Leo's hard drive? Sorry, Leo.
Yeah, no, it's Denise's brother, James Howell, who had a 20 gig hard drive with thousands of Bitcoin on it, accidentally in the landfill. It's worth, I think, billions, $500 million.
This is not your brother-in-law, is it?
No,
You said-
I'm just
No,
kidding.
Leo's joking.
Howell's a
the world. It's a
I'm
small
sorry.
world.
He's
It's a small
Jason
world. I was gonna-
Howell's brother. That's who it is. Never mind. Anyway, he's
so
been
sorry.
trying desperately to get people to dig up the landfill because the hard drive's in there.
Oh, yeah.
I think I remember him saying, "I just try not to think of it now. I don't
Yeah, he
want to."
got divorced over it. It's,
Well, our own Steve Gibson, who in the early days of Bitcoin, we did a whole episode on and he was entranced by, as am I still, the mathematics of it, the cleverness of, the blockchain and what Satoshi had put together was quite, a lot of forethought, brilliant idea. And so he said, well, let me create a Bitcoin mining rig and just see what happens. The next morning he gets up, 50 Bitcoin fell out of it. 50.
Wow.
He has since, he didn't, because it was worth maybe $100 or something at the time.
Yeah.
They put the hard drive. The hard drive's long gone. 50 Bitcoin gone. So whenever Steve mentions that, I don't worry so much about my 7.85 Bitcoin.
We're joking about all these lost keys and lost drives and things, but when you think about other things that people invest in that are not FDIC insured, they don't have the option of a custodial way of holding those things. Right?
Right.
So, I mean, at least
You could put in a
crypto
safe
gives you
deposit
that.
box. Yeah.
What are you going to do? Actually hold the share certificates, I guess?
Oish.
I'm just old enough. I had some sent to me once because I had some restricted shares, a very small amount in an early startup, and I actually had to get the physical shares and do all this weird paperwork. It was like, oh, this is what they're like. There is a story about a guy who I've never been able to track down the details. Someone told me this, so maybe it's apocryphal. He had worked for a company. It had the value of the shares had gone down so low that he wallpapered his bathroom with them, and he forgot about it. And one day he's sitting in the bathroom and looks at it, and he realizes the company was sold. Its fortunes were restored, and he steamed them all off his bathroom to exchange them. If anybody knows the origin of that story, I was told it so many years ago, and it could be apocryphal, but I love the notion of sitting there on the john and going, "Oh my God, I'm rich."
I can think of a lot of these. There's a New York Times article about a German programmer living in San Francisco who put his wallet on an iron key hard drive that gives you 10 guesses to the password. He's forgotten it. He's guessed 8. He's got 2 guesses left. There's about 220 million, or was, it's now half that, $220 million in currency. He lost the paper where he wrote down the password, and he only gets 2 more guesses. So he's not thinking. They estimate, and I don't know how much we know, but about 20% of all the Bitcoin mined has been somehow lost. 18.5 million Bitcoin.
It gives a whole new meaning to buried treasure.
Yeah, stranded wallets, things like that. Yeah. Let's take a little break. Lots more to talk about with our fine panel. Glenn Fleischman is here. Glenn.fun with 2 N's in the Glenn and 1 N in the fun for all of the stuff he does. We're going to talk about that thing you just bought, which is very cool.
It's exciting.
A little bit later on. Denise Howell is also here, the Internet's lawyer, denisehowell.info. And brand new to our panel, but very welcome, Caitlin McGarry, news editor of Protocol. I want to show you all my Blue Land because we were talking about plastics, and it's, what... I was talking with Rod Pyle, that does our This Week in Space show, about Bakelite, which was a plastic invented in the 1900s that was the precursor to all the plastics we know today, and how it would just crumble. And we've gotten better and better at making plastics, and unfortunately, they get thrown out. Every year, about 5 billion plastic hand soap and cleaning bottles are thrown away. That is a lot of plastic. I am personally in my life trying to get rid of single-use plastics, and Blue Land has been a really great solution for me. This is an example of a Blue Land Forever bottle. It's made of plastic, yeah, but the idea is you don't throw it away. In fact, notice it's empty. When you get your Blue Land, and they have hand soap. I have actually, those are nice heavy glass, so you can pump them. I have, this is the multi-surface cleaner. There's window cleaner. I have Blue Land tablets for my laundry and my dishwasher. They even have oxy tablets for like bleach, but not bleach. All of it is environmentally friendly for a couple of reasons. So what I'll do is I'll fill up this multi-surface bottle with warm water up to the line. I'll put in one of these Blue Land tablets. They smell great. This one is, let me see what the scent is on this one. I think this is Perrine Lemon. I can't remember, but they smell great. You fill them up, and the tablet dissolves, and now you've got cleaner, good cleaner in this bottle. You never throw away the bottle. It's built to last, but you get more tablets. And by the way, the bottles are about $10 when you buy a kit. The tablet's about $2, and they even have subscriptions. You can have a refresh plan, which we do. So I never run out of tablets. The only thing you're going to have to get rid of is your preconceived notion that eco-friendly products don't work. These work. They're fantastic. A cleaner planet starts by eliminating plastic waste. Powerful, effective cleaners for your entire home. By the way, there's another form of waste that comes with all those cleaning bottles. They're about, the stuff in the bottle is about 90% water. The active ingredient is 10%. So that means we're spending a lot of money having trucks bring water around instead of just delivering the active ingredient in a tablet, which you add your own water to. So that's another way Blue Land is really environmentally friendly. Beautiful Instagrammable bottles. Fill them with warm water. Pop in the hand soap or spray cleaner tablets, and within minutes you have powerful cleaning products in amazing scents. Iris, agave, perrine, lemon, lavender, eucalyptus. I got the Christmas package last Christmas. I smelled like a gingerbread house for a whole couple of weeks. It was wonderful. Peppermint. They have new scents all the time, or unscented. In fact, we use their unscented laundry detergent. It's really great. Blue Land even sells wool balls. We have 3 wool balls we put in the dryer that reduce static without those wasteful static sheets. They work great. Oh, and very popular, the Blue Land toilet tablet cleaner. You throw in a tablet, you let it dissolve, scrub it with a brush, you're done. They sell out like crazy because they're so good. You can get a kit from the Clean Essentials kit to their hand soap duo, the plastic-free laundry and dishwasher tablets. They make a great housewarming gift. I gave the complete set to my daughter when she moved into her new apartment. It's so great. It's so great. Bottles start at just $10 when you buy a kit. The tablet's just a couple of bucks. Try Blue Land today. You will love it. Your planet will thank you. It's got great ingredients. It's great all around. It makes you feel good. Right now, get 20% off your first order. BlueLand.com/twit. You got to go to that address, though. BlueLand.com/twit. We use the dish soap. It's a powder, and it comes in that middle bottle in there, a little plastic bottle, and you shake it out. It's great. And then you just refill the bottle with more dish soap. It's so great. BlueLand.com/twit. 20% off your first order of any Blue Land product. I couldn't recommend it more highly. It makes me feel really good. Refill is the new recycle. BlueLand.com/twit. Thank you, Blue Land, for a great product and for supporting Twit. Let's see, what else is going on? The Royal Mail is going to deliver mail to the rural, remote islands via drone. The first communities to benefit, the Isles of Scilly, aptly named, and this is a very Monty Python name, and the Scottish islands of Shetland, Orkney, and the Hebrides. 50 drone routes. They're actually pretty big drones. They can hold a significant amount of mail, 100 kilograms, 220 pounds of mail. Do 2 routes a day, 2 round trips a day. They don't say in this article, good article from Engadget, but they don't say in the article how they deliver it. Do they just drop it out the back? I feel like they might. I don't know. Or put a parachute on it? All it says is after the drone arrives at its destination, a postal worker will retrieve the mail. Maybe they land. It can withstand difficult weather conditions with its autopilot system, wingspan of 10 meters. Pretty cool. Nothing to say about it, but
maybe it just prevents them from using trucks and planes and boats and things.
They'd have to use boats. Yeah, these are all pretty remote islands. Yeah,
maybe they have a central delivery point and then everybody gets their delivery.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't go to you individually. Yeah. Although apparently that's what Amazon's doing, which is really weird. Have you seen their Skyhook drones where they lower your package down? You release it and then it goes off?
Gimmick.
It's got to be a gimmick.
I got a good UK Royal Mail story, though, sort of. It's a UK story that's related, which is a few months ago, I got an email from a guy who CC'd somebody else I know, the Mac world, saying, I got this problem. I live in Wales, and whenever Apple adds new addresses get added in the UK, like flats of building anywhere in the UK, they put them at my address. Apple Maps does. And so I have people showing up sometimes many times a week driving down my muddy driveway because he's in a slightly rural part of Wales. Is there anything I can do about this? And we don't know anybody at Apple. We try to get in touch with people and pass it along. Eventually, months later, it apparently resolved itself. But literally, they would put up a building with the flats and the Royal Mail would assign out new zip codes, new postal codes, rather. And Apple's mapping team, that was the 0 point, there was a couple was in Kansas who sued Google or someone because people kept showing up because they were that kind of thing. So it was just like that, except in rural Wales. So people would drive. They'd be going to obviously a building full of flats, and they would be driving to rural Wales and show up at this guy's house. He and his wife were very perturbed about it, but apparently it was resolved before I could forward him to a journalist to write a major story about this.
It's funny because, Kashmir Hill did that story in the New York Times about that poor Kansas farm.
Oh, my gosh.
This is the problem with GeoIP location is if your IP address doesn't show a real location, they just put you in the middle. It's kind of the random location. And so Kashmir Hill wrote this story, which is hysterical, about how an internet mapping glitch turned a random Kansas farm into a digital hell. People would drop off, they'd say, "You stole my iPhone." No, I didn't. No, I know because it's on Find My iPhone. It's this house. No, it's just because we're the default. Oh. So this happened years ago. I guess it's happened again. this started in 2002 when a Massachusetts-based digital mapping company called MaxMind did geolocation via IP address, and if they couldn't figure out where it was, they put you in Wichita.
Yeah, this guy was in Wales was lucky because it was only new addresses, so it wasn't a default. But it was still, they're building stuff in England and Wales.
Yeah,
Scotland.
there's a lot of new stuff. Yeah. Kashmir says, I do hope the best story I've ever written doesn't go offline with the death of Splinter. She's at the New York Times now.
Oh, yeah.
What is Splinter News?
Was that where she wrote it for?
That was Gawker Media's news and politics site.
Oh.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of broken images now. But the articles are still there, but their images, a lot of the images are broken.
Yeah, I wrote my first article about link rot in 1997.
It's a lot more rotten now. You knew it was coming.
Oh my!
Wow,
it's already happening.
Yeah, link rot. That's a good name for it. Speaking of rotting corpses and carcasses, the Ipod is dead. That's got a grim way to put it. Wow.
Had a good run.
They had a good run. The first iPod came out in October 2001. The last iPod, the iPod Touch, Apple has announced they will make no more. Actually, what they said is something like, while supplies last, you can order an iPod Touch. The implication being they ain't going to last much longer. It's all over for the iPod Touch, all over for the iPod, which was a revolutionary product that in many ways saved Apple. Again, I'm reading this great Trip Mickle book after Steve, and he talks about, remember, Apple was 100 days away from bankruptcy under Gil Amelio, right, in the mid-'90s. They were they were dead meat. Because, first Scully, drives them in one direction, then Michael Spindler comes in and he does other things, and then Gil Amelio is brought in by the board to save the company, and he had no idea what he was doing. And by the end of those three, there was not much left after they fired Steve Jobs. But the one thing Amelio did that was smart, he brought Steve Jobs back. He bought Next, and Steve came in, swooped in, saved the company, first by making the beautiful Bondi Blue iMac, which did sell very well. But I think it's probably the case that 4 years later, when the iPod came out, that was when Apple really started its climb. And of course, it was really the precursor for the iPhone 6 years later. So the beginning of creating the most valuable company in the world. Actually, it's no longer the most valuable company in the world, is it? I think BP or somebody is now.
Saudi
Aramco. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember getting the first iPod for review. I was writing freelance for the Seattle Times at the time, so Apple's like, and Apple was no big shakes. They're like, hey, you want to review this thing before it comes out? I said, sure, and I promptly broke it by sticking in a too long 1/8-inch adapter, and they were like, okay, we'll send you another one.
You had no idea how valuable those were. Oh, my God.
No, so I sent it back. They sent me another one, and I handed it to my niece. Was she 13 or 14 at the time? I said, here, see what you can do with this. And she immediately, within 5 seconds, had music playing out of it. And I'm like, there it is. And I think the iPad, one of its unique characteristics was that it never stopped being cool for its kind of primary lifetime before the iPhone took over. You could be 5 or 10 or 17 or 85, and it still wasn't not cool because adults were using it, right? It was, I don't know there's another product that's quite like that.
Here is from 2001, the very first, I think I can show this now. The statute of limitations is expired. I don't know.
Oh, is this the panic thing?
This is the very no. This is the very first iPod commercial.
I'm sorry.
A guy sitting at his white MacBook Pro. He's dancing to the music, and this was, I think, before they used real music. So I think I can show this. This is just some random drum track. There he is with iTunes. He really loves. Oh, no, maybe it's the propeller heads. He really loves this song. What is that he's copying? He's using Firewire. What? And now, the same song. And he's dancing out the door. This was the famous 1,000 Songs in Your Pocket. This predates the really legendary iPod ads, which were the black silhouettes with the white headphones. But it did have the dancing in there.
Oh, I love this one. It's better even than the Black Silhouettes.
Yeah, going out of his clearly a Brooklyn apartment. And he's got the 1,000 songs in his pocket.
1,000 songs.
Okay, he's no AKA Twigs, but still.
Yeah, and they still were using Think Different back in the day. Wow.
The statute of limitations never runs, and to the extent that copyrighted music triggers
I'm dead.
any of
They're going to take me down.
Then it'll get taken down. But this is fair use because we are doing commentary.
We're commentarying on top of it.
iPod.
Yeah. But as you well
And
know,
that
fair use
commercial was
is
central to our
That's
commentary.
right. That's right. Remember, there were some moments with the iPod that we'll never forget, like iPod socks. Right?
Yeah.
I had forgotten until you said that phrase.
No, the iPod Hi-Fi that was so good that Steve Jobs said he was throwing out his millions of dollars of iPod equipment or stereo equipment. I don't think Steve did. But yeah, it's really the end of an era. You know, the last iPod, the iPod Touch, will no longer be manufactured because everybody's got an iPhone and now everybody's streaming. It doesn't really, you don't need to store music anymore. You have
it was really upsetting. One of our Gen Z coworkers was like, the iPod Touch was the first device that I took my first selfie on, and I was like,
oh wow.
I was like, in my day, the iPod did not have a camera.
Do you remember your first iPod, Caitlin?
My first iPod was the blue iPod Mini.
Ooh.
It was very stylish. I got it for Christmas. I remember I was in college. I took it with me everywhere. And then eventually I had to upgrade to the iPod Classic because I needed more space for all the songs I was definitely downloading legally.
From Napster. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. These were great. These iPod minis they were aluminum, which was the original iPods were polycarbonate fronts with shiny steel backs. They got rid of the spinning click wheel by this time. So it was just a little wheel. This is from PC
great.
Magazine. They have a whole history of the iPod at PCMag.com. There's the iPod Nano in Steve Jobs' hands.
You'll never be able to play video on an iPod, you know. As
He
Steve
said
Jobs
that.
We'll
Yeah.
Never, ever.
Until
Why
you
would
can.
You want to do that?
In fact, that's when we learned that Steve will say anything. You can't do that until you can.
Till it's time.
Yeah, remember the iPod Shuffle that had
that was great.
Yeah, basically no control, no screen. You played what you played.
Yep.
I had a couple of those. Those were great.
One looked like a stick of gum, right? And then they got one that was a clip that you clipped on. Yeah, I thought they were great.
We still have one of the iPhone precursors, the ones that looked like
the Touch?
kind of an iPhone.
Yeah,
the iPod Touch that was my son's when he was little. Aww. And when we were going through, spring cleaning the house or whatever, he stumbled across it. We still have it. It still works. But the apps are no longer supported. So a lot of them don't work, but a lot of them do. I mean, like to the extent they're just accessing whatever is on that device. And it was so nostalgic for him to I remember this from when I was 5.
Yeah, periodically we'll get out my original iPod, which I still have in my museum over here. You have to find a FireWire cable to charge it up. And it's Britney Spears, because I guess I was really into this. I think my kids got some music on my iPod. I think that's that's my real, that's my excuse.
Likely story.
Yeah, exactly. Ads are coming to Netflix. Netflix tells its employees maybe as soon as the end of the year. Is this the way to save Netflix? Is starting to show? I think the reason people subscribe to Netflix is so they don't have to see ads.
100% agree with you. And nothing irks us more than turning on Paramount Plus and being confronted with pre-roll when we're paying for that service. Like, no, that's paying for it means you don't get that.
Well, if you paid more, you could get rid of them.
Can you?
Yeah.
I think I'm paying everything I can pay.
Oh, really?
I think so.
I think you can pay more. Hulu, and I think is what Netflix will do. They all have low price tiers where you watch ads, which is a horrible experience. At least it used to be, because they didn't have very many ads, so you'd see the same ad over and over again.
They're not third-party ads. They're Paramount Plus ads.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So annoying. So annoying. So I guess that's what Netflix is going to do, because it works so well for the other guys. What has gone wrong with Netflix?
I mean, Netflix just banked on being the only player for a really long time. Like, it didn't really have a lot of competition. And now, every other streaming service also has really good original content and pretty good library of older content that they own. And now it's like, I don't need to pay for Netflix every single month. Maybe I just subscribe on a month when everyone's talking about the show I want to watch. And like, you can kind of pick and choose how you subscribe. And they also keep raising prices, which is kind of ridiculous when no one else is raising prices. And then you have Disney Plus, which just owns children and their parents. And that's a disastrous combination.
Even Apple TV Plus is getting better and better. I wasn't impressed in the early days, but Severance is very good.
Slow Horses.
Isn't Slow Horses great?
Really?
They're doing stuff now at a level to compete very well with Netflix and Amazon Prime. The other problem Netflix has is, unlike Apple and Amazon, they have to make all their money on subscriptions. Apple can lose money on Apple TV Plus. Amazon can lose money on Amazon Prime because it supports their other service and their other businesses.
Do you get the sense when you're scrolling through Netflix that they're actually creating the programs as you go right? You go right, and more and more improbable stuff starts to appear. And you're like, "Is that a real show?"
Make up some stuff quick. You're scrolling right.
If I click, you're just like, that can't be real, is it? And then you click through and you're like, there's 4 seasons of this. I've never heard about it. They do a good job. I mean, they do a good job of, I think, understanding what people want to watch. But I think they've leaned in too heavily into the algorithm, because it starts to get, the shows they've commissioned start to get very weird and specific, like an AI gone wrong. So maybe they need more human involvement. I mean, I'm sure we've all done this sort of doom scroll through Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime. And you're like, where did this come from? Who was this made
Who
for?
is this? Yeah. I honestly think Netflix should put their investment into their software, that their actual apps do a terrible job of recommending. If you're watching something, it's often not the first thing that shows up. So it's hard even to continue watching something that you watched. I just think the app is terrible. There's too many things. They need to do something. And I remember they had a prize for a better recommendation engine, and nobody came up with a better recommendation engine. They couldn't do it. Really? These are the top 10 movies in the U.S. today? Wow. Senior year?
Wow.
Our Father?
I don't know what these shows are.
This I want to watch.
Marmaduke, at least.
Yeah,
Marmaduke has Pete Davidson doing a voice in it, I think.
All right.
That's one of the reasons.
There you go.
Maybe.
Borrego. I think this top 10 list, more than anything, tells you what's wrong at Netflix right now.
But you've also got cross-subsidization going on, because I've got T-Mobile subsidizes my Netflix account, so I pay so little I actually don't cancel it. Disney Plus subsidizes Hulu.
Maybe that's the solution.
T-Mobile's now subsidizing Paramount Plus, so I only pay a fraction of what, I think we have 5 services. We have Amazon Prime because we still have their delivery deal, so I don't think I really pay directly 100% for anything but Disney Plus, and we watch the heck out of it, so why not?
There's another problem for, in the long run, for Netflix, which is, for a long time, they spent, I think, $11 billion last year on original content, but they owned the market. Now, here's Apple TV getting Academy Award for Coda. It's going to be a lot harder to convince creators like Martin Scorsese to go to Netflix. Yeah, the money's there, but the Irishman is buried with 1,000 crappy movies, right? And that's not what Scorsese wants. He wants an Academy Award. He wants to be, featured. So I have a feeling Netflix's problems are multi-layered. I honestly think, though, they could do a so much better job with the app. I just don't feel like the apps are very good. It's hard to find something good. Or maybe because there is nothing good. Maybe that's they're looking at live streaming, unscripted series, stand-up specials, reality shows like live streaming because you can vote while it's airing. I don't know if that's a good solution for them either, honestly. I'm not sure what I would do if I were in charge. Meanwhile, Disney Plus added 8 million new subscribers. Is that because they own Star Wars and Marvel? Is that really the secret there?
It's got to be a
hours.
huge part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, also, like, they keep putting out these really incredible animated movies. Like, everyone I know is watching Encanto, like, over and over and over. So, yeah, they've really captivated the all-important kid audience.
I want somebody to
the
write...
song's back in my head again.
I know. I want somebody to write a song. We don't talk about Elon. I want that song. Would somebody please write that song?
Ask Randy Rainbow will do it, I'm sure.
I bet. I don't know why he hasn't yet.
It's funny, though. I mean, I just saw an ad on YouTube, just the way all this cross-fertilization goes. My 15-year-old and I are watching something. An ad on YouTube comes up for the most deranged-looking Chip and Dale movie I've ever seen. It looks like a Roger Rabbit. It's just bizarre, although I think it's John Mulaney and I forget the other person. There's some prominent voices in it. And then I discovered it's going to be released in a few days on Disney Plus, so it'll only be on streaming.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is kind of a brilliant strategy. They caught us. They figured us out from the YouTube algorithm. They're pushing us to a service we already subscribe to. Maybe they don't know that. I don't know. We cheer, by the way, when we watch YouTube, my 15-year-old and I cheer when it gives us totally inappropriate ads. We're like, yeah, they don't know who we are.
Victory! We fooled them again. Do you do any active fuzzing, or is it just stupid?
No, we just watch all kinds of weird stuff. We're watching like engineering shows and new rock stars breakdowns of videos, and I'm watching German education. It's just we confuse them.
That's the secret, by the way. Watch German education videos.
There you go.
That'll. What do they advertise to you if you watch those?
I don't know. They're giving us language tapes or something. Nothing interesting, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately.
They want us to buy an F-150 or something. They want us to buy a lot of cars. They really want to sell us cars. We're like, we have all the cars we need.
You live in Seattle. You need a pickup truck. Absolutely. Let's take a little break.
Preferably.
Have two. Let's take a little break. I think it's pretty soon. It's going to be time to wrap it up. We have a few extra little stories. Usually the fun stuff's at the end of the show. We'll get you some stuff. But first, a word from ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter is the best way to hire. Certain people make life so much easier. People, you just don't know what you'd do without them. Maybe your partner, your friend, your personal assistant. It's like if you need to grow your business. ZipRecruiter makes hiring so much easier. They're kind of like your partner, your friend, your personal assistant for hiring. They do the work for you, and they really do a good job. And I can say that from personal experience. Many of our best employees have come to us from ZipRecruiter. And now you could try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. When you post on ZipRecruiter, you're posting to 100+ job sites with one click of the mouse. That's good because it casts the widest net. And when those applications come roaring in, it goes straight to, not to your phone or your mailbox, but it goes straight to the ZipRecruiter interface, which makes it easy to rank candidates, reject the people that don't fit, and select the right person fast. But there's one more thing ZipRecruiter does that's really the secret sauce. ZipRecruiter's technology actually finds the right candidates for your job and then tells you about them. You can invite your top choices to apply. It's really clever. They go out through all the existing resumes they have, and they say, this person would be right for your job, this person, this person. Now, they don't tell that person. They tell you, and you get to invite them. Something happens that's kind of magical. When you invite people to apply for your job, they're so flattered. They respond immediately. They do the interviews. It's a really great way to reach out. No wonder 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's probably why ZipRecruiter is rated the #1 hiring site based on G2 ratings as of the beginning of this year. The hardest thing you have to do, just remember our special URL to try ZipRecruiter for free, ZipRecruiter.com/twit. Again, ZipRecruiter.com/TWIT, the best way to hire. ZipRecruiter. We had a fun week this week on Twit. I think we've made a little mini movie you can watch right here. See how it went.
I will say, if someone asked what's the weirdest tech, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. What was your weirdest? But somebody already has it here in our Discord.
CES this year, taint tech.
What?
Taint tech. I did not mispronounce that. Taint tech.
Oh, I don't even want to Google
I don't want
that.
to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Previously on Twit. Twit News.
So there is the glasses.
You should be seeing what I'm saying.
Oh my
just
gosh.
Transcribed for you in real time.
Oh.
Kind of like subtitles for the world.
Heads up display.
That would be an amazing travel companion, right?
Yeah.
Like anytime you go somewhere.
Well,
it's
that's
like,
right.
cool,
So
I've got
could you
my-
put these glasses on? Because I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah, right.
Floss Weekly.
So Hector Martinez is the guest, and he is the lead developer behind something called Asahi Linux, which is porting Linux to the new Apple M1 chip, which is just a mind-boggling achievement that they've been able to make so much progress so quickly.
This Week in Google.
The Texas Appeals Court, the 5th District, has ruled that the Texas social media law can proceed. A lower court had blocked it.
If I were running a social media company right now, I would be talking to my lawyers this very second, trying to figure out if we can still do business in Texas.
Twit. Join the chat room and watch us watching you.
That, by the way, that interview with Father Robert was on Club Twit and will be on the Club Twit Plus feed. If you're not a Club Twit member, I want to encourage you to join. It's only $7 a month. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You won't even see this ad in your feed. You also get access to the Discord, which is lots of fun. Not only discussions about the ongoing shows, like right now, This Week in Tech, but about all kinds of nerdy topics from comic books to coding to cooking to ham radio, software, science, space. And then we also use the Twit Club to launch new shows. That's where we launched This Week in Space. We've got the Untitled Linux Show, the Giz Fizz, Stacy's Book Club, and all of those show up on the Twit Plus feed, which also has content that didn't make it to the podcast. Usually stuff before and after shows, things like that. So there's a lot of good there. Twit.tv/clubtwit. I invite you to join. It really helps us do new things, do exciting things, and we love to have U.S. club members. Twit.tv/clubtwit. Let's see. From New Scientist, virtual reality mask adds realism by making it harder to breathe. You know, if they wanted to make virtual reality even less appealing, it would be to make it harder to breathe. They're doing it on purpose. I don't know why. It just seems like They've
broken you, Leo. Leo, they broke you.
They broke me. It's like, what? Why would you do that? A mask that controls how much air you can breathe could be used to simulate environments with a restricted air supply. Don't want to go there. Don't want to experience that. Thank you very much. It baffles me.
Is that an escape room without any room?
Yeah,
or something? I don't know what that
I mean,
is.
this sounds horrible.
Yeah, where do you go that it's harder to breathe?
Space.
Like, what are they going to simulate? Yeah.
Space. Like, oh, you fell out of the ship. Are you okay?
A closed room?
Here's a picture of the black hole at the center of the galaxy.
This is so cool.
This is a lot of computing power, millions of years of computing power, because the way they got this picture, Rod Powell was talking about this on the Tech Guide today, is they used hundreds of telescopes all over the globe to do some sort of weird triangulation of this thing. And it took a huge amount of computing power. 300 researchers, 80 institutions, turned a network of telescopes into essentially a planet-sized observatory called the Event Horizon Telescope. Like mind-boggling.
Yeah. This is a great bit of technology. Back with the Voyager missions, the Deep Space Network used for communications with probes and landers and so forth through relays, there's a principle that the area of a transmitter, and the same thing would be true with a telescope, if you combine multiple transmitters at the same time. It's effectively like having a bigger transmitter, but you need the technology to unify them and use them simultaneously. So you could get much fainter signals. That's why they're able to get pictures back from Neptune and Uranus with Voyager 2, I think was the one that swung by there. And this is a similar principle. It's just like, well, if you have a bunch of telescopes, you can combine them and have a super telescope because if they're all pointing in the right way and you have that vast amount of power behind it.
3.5 petabytes of data from the telescopes. Now, for some reason, the Smithsonian decided the best way to communicate how much data that is to say that's the equivalent of 100 million TikTok videos, which doesn't... I don't even... What does that mean?
The only way we understand the world these days. That's
How many TikTok videos would that be? Well, it's about 100 million. Because there was so much data, they could not transmit it via the internet. It just wasn't fast enough. They shipped hard drives around.
Sure.
Yeah, sneakernet. But it worked. It worked. We now have a picture.
Maybe quantities of TikTok videos could be the basis for some sort of fiat currency.
Yes. Why, that's 100 million TikTok videos. Okay. Let's see. Anything else? TikTok is now, by the way, more people watch TikTok than watch YouTube in the U.S. Time spent scrolling through TikTok. 38.6 minutes on TikTok on average in 2020. 4 minutes more than Facebook's 34 minutes of what? Minutes per day? I guess it must be minutes per day. Time spent with Facebook decreasing. TikTok coming close to YouTube. Of course, YouTube has created their own short videos trying to compete with TikTok. 40% of Gen Z spends more than, this is a disappointing stat, 40% of Gen Z spends more than 3 hours a day on TikTok. That's more than 100 million videos a day. No, it's not. 3 hours on TikTok.
They don't watch TV, though.
Right. That's their entire thing. I shouldn't knock it because my son is a verifiable TikTok star, much bigger audience than ever I had. So
you're making me hungry again.
I know you've seen his videos, haven't you?
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah. While TikTok's time spent, according to eMarketer, will top YouTube's this year, the ad revenues won't yet. That will happen in 2024 when TikTok nets $11 billion in U.S. ad revenues, topping the $10.7 billion that YouTube has today. And actually, according to TechCrunch, TikTok is starting to share revenue with creators. So Salt Hank will be glad to hear that. Actually, you can make some good money, I think, on TikTok. But you have to kind of do it on your own by selling ads for yourself and stuff. It's the first time TikTok's actually shared their revenue with TikTokers.
I think it's interesting how it's all video, but nobody thinks that TikTok videos are like YouTube videos, right? I mean,
no, it's very different.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, my son is trying to do YouTube. It's different. So he's got to do longer form. It's very different. His style just fits TikTok perfectly. But not so much on YouTube, although, he's growing fast on YouTube. Would you like to buy the house where Facebook was born? This is the house that Mark Zuckerberg and his cohorts moved into 25 years ago in Silicon Valley in Los Altos. 6 bedrooms, 4.5 baths. Mark Zuckerberg, 19. Dustin Moskovitz, 19. Sean Parker, 24. Lived there. The owner is looking to sell her newly refurbished home. How much would you pay for this beautiful home in Los Altos? They're asking $5.3 million. You should be a little plaque.
I'd pay 100 million
front.
TikToks for it,
Yeah.
of course.
There should be a little plaque. Mark Zuckerberg, slept here or something. That'd be kind of cool. You could put that on there if you buy it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to look at the Zillow comps for that house. I mean, it's expensive anyway.
That's an expensive neighborhood. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should check to see if that's a little more, if there's a premium because it is the place Facebook was born. I think we could just say those were our final stories for the week. You guys have been very fun and wonderful. Caitlin, I hope you enjoyed your first visit to This Week in Tech, and I hope you'll come back many more times. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Caitlin McGarry, news editor of Protocol, the Source Code podcast. You do that weekly?
Yes, weekly.
And is it always about crypto, or is it a variety of topics?
No, it's about the week's biggest tech news. We're usually highlighting our really great original reporting at Protocol. So we have our excellent colleagues join us, and hopefully some special guests from outside of Protocol as well soon.
Is Elon Musk serious? Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Good. I can't. Yeah, I'll have to add that to my my subscriptions. Source Code Podcast at protocol.com. A real pleasure meeting you, and thanks for joining us on the show. I'm glad you knew Glenn. I think that's nice. It's a small world, I guess.
Yeah. It is a small world. Yes. Yeah. Glenn, it was so good to see you.
Likewise, this is so exciting. I was so happy to see your name on the
Glenn Fleischman
list.
Glenn.fund. Show us what you just bought.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. So this is a flong, FLONG.
I learned about flongs a couple of weeks ago.
Printing history.
Oh, wow.
So that's made out of like a paper mache like material that they then put the lead into to make a page.
Exactly.
Of the newspaper.
Here, I've got a plate. So here's what's called a stereotype. This is what it looks like. Whoops, upside down. This is great. Doing great with video.
That's a comic book comic page.
Yeah, so this would have been made from a flong and then used for later parts of the printing process.
Oh, John says it's Doonesbury. It is. Oh, it's
a Doonesbury strip.
Oh, that's a cool thing to have.
And so somebody saved this because these were all melted down. The same thing. The flongs were made of paper. Paper wood pulp. They were burned. The paper mache. The metal would have been remelted and used. Newspapers used thousands of pounds of lead alloy every night, and then melted it down and used it for the next edition. And newspapers could go through 10 editions in a day. They'd revise the news. It was like the web or something. They would just keep melting lead, but it was the web with lead.
So show us again. This one is John Glenn. His first
upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
Glenn goes. Launch is okay. Report on orbit awaited. This is a Newsday.
You can sort of see
front page.
Halftone. You can't really see. Oh, there we go. If I get a little bit of an angle.
Yeah, you can kind of see.
How would the lead do the halftone?
It's amazing how high resolution this is. You can feel it. It's in relief, and so it actually literally they would cast it. They would cast a halftone from it that was printed. This is how essentially all newspapers were printed. Was with this hard. There was a flong before this, but this hard paper flong was used from about 1900 to the 1980s, and it's a whole hilarious thing. I'll show you one more thing because this is a prized possession. I've got more coming though. It's a Peanuts flong.
Oh,
it's
look
a
at that.
4-color strip from the 1970s, and Lucy, Dr. Lucy, and then this is the printed. It's a.
So is that flong just the black color? I mean, you'd have to have one for each color.
This is just the black.
Right? Yeah.
I have all the colors, and then here's I found via eBay. This is the printed version from a San Francisco Chronicle in whatever that is, 1977. So this is kind of a late example, but this is how I while away my non-digital time is looking at analog things like that.
Wow. Very, very cool. There's a picture on Twitter of it. That's just neat.
And I'm guessing that's where we got the word stereotype, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And funny, so stereotype comes from that because you're making a copy of something. And cliché is the French word for stereotype, which is funny. And then typecasting is from casting type. Somebody who was, you're casting type. And so we've got 3 different words that all came into English. But cliché is good. Apparently the sound when the plates were being printed was cliché, cliché, cliché.
No,
cliché.
that's
the
cliché is onomatopoeia. Wow.
Yeah, that's what they claim. I don't know if it's true, but so it's all from that.
That is a story. Here's another one you bought. Reds put radio-filled Sputnik in orbit. Yeah. Nice.
This is what I love so that was the most important news of the day, but the big pictures on it was some kind of blind date competition. Honestly, they're set for. You're thinking. So it's the Reds go to.
There's Sputnik, but here's a couple about to date.
We'll hit moon. Tests have failed. Yeah, and then a couple on the cover of Newsday. This is the most important news of the day.
That's Long Island for you.
History. It's how you learn
So is there a
history.
flong marketplace? Where do you go to find flong?
Oh, I buy stuff on eBay because nobody cares about flying except me and a handful of printing historians. So we have a fun time of it. But I have the motherload of flang coming from a guy in Sweden who bought a huge set. I have almost 200 peanuts flangs from the U.S. that made their way to Sweden that are coming. I think they're arriving tomorrow. And I'm not a collector because I do not have enough room to collect stuff. I'm bringing stuff in, taking photos, documenting it, and then sort of distributing it. So I'm donating some to museums.
Oh, nice.
Been in touch with the Schultz Museum about donating or selling some of the peanuts collection
when
to them.
When you come out to deliver that, we're just down the road. You come visit us.
You are down the road, right?
Yeah, they're in Santa Rosa. We're just here in Petaluma, short distance.
I've offered to go down and lecture about flang, so we'll see if they take me up on it.
Okay. Maybe we could split the cost with the Santa Rosa Peanuts Museum. Thank you, Glenn. Great to have you.
Thank you so much.
As always, Denise Howell, you're my internet lawyer. Always a thrill to have you on. What are you up to these days? Anything exciting to share with us?
Nothing too exciting. Just plugging along, working away, trying to toil in the vineyards of justice as best as possible.
Oh, maybe that's where you'd use the virtual reality mask where you can't breathe. That's probably simulating the orchards of justice. Well, I'm glad you're doing so well. It's great to see you. DeniseHowell.info is the website. Thank you all for being here. You guys are great. We had a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us. If you want to watch Twit live, you can. We do the show every Sunday about 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. The live stream, audio or video, is at live.twit.tv. People who are watching live, chat live. Everybody's invited to join us in the IRC at irc.twit.tv. Club members can also join us in the Discord. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show available at our website, twit.tv. There's a dedicated YouTube channel for every show we do. So there's a Twit channel on YouTube. I think it's This Week in Tech. And you can watch the videos there. Probably the best way to do it, certainly the recommended way to do it, is to subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you get it automatically. You don't have to think about it. And you can watch or listen at your leisure. And if your podcast player allows for reviews, please leave us a 5-star review. Let the world know about, I think, the longest running tech podcast in the world, now in our 18th year. Amazing. Thanks for joining us. Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.